VolyaRadio. Slava Ukraini!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having a great day. I think it's a great day for some football fans. I can't believe I just said football. And maybe some others are upset. Yeah, I don't know. I heard somebody caught the golden snitch and the game ended. So that was, I guess, good. Yeah. Anyway, let us go ahead and get our timestamp going here while everybody gets into place. And then we'll see if we can do this in record time to make Will think that he has to be done with the stuff in the nest part. Because, that's kind of entertaining and fun. He doesn't like that. Oh well. It is currently Sunday, July 12th in most of the world, but not all of the world. So let's check out what time it is where. It is 6:01 a.m. in Slap Bottom in the UK. I hear they lost a football game today, Jennie. I'm just kidding. I know they won. They caught the golden snitch. It is 7:01 a.m. in what random Swedish town there's Jennie?
Snorrslida, which means wiener vagina.
Snore Slider.
Yeah, we could say that too, I guess. Oh, did Norway lose? I'm so sad.
Yes, they did.
Oh,
So did
okay.
Switzerland.
Oh, fake Sweden too. Oh, that's good.
Fake Sweden. Oh, good Lord. All right.
Fake Sweden, fake Sweden. Oh, you're oh, that is excellent. That you're now my new favorite co-host. That and once again reminded me yesterday that Vikings were just misunderstood or farmers and tradesmen who didn't take rejection well.
But it's it's true. You can actually
Fake
Google it.
fake Sweden.
Yes.
All right, I can't close my mic now, so I'm gonna have to recycle. You carry on.
I think you broke him, Jennie.
I guess I did. But the thing is, like, the amount of times when I was like, "Where are you from?" Sweden. Ah, oh my God, I love the Alps, and I'm like, I've never been, and they're like, they're right there in your country, and I'm like, no, that would be Switzerland. I'm from Sweden. Vikings up north. We have stinky fish, and so now I just refer to it as fake Sweden, and it has gone so far that if you look up the Swedish Tourist Bureau or something, they actually have a video where they go through like Sweden is not Switzerland. And so from now on, I will refer to Switzerland as fake Sweden. They just pretend to be us. But it's kind of funny that I broke Will. Anyways, back to you.
You did. You totally broke him. It was pretty hilarious, in my opinion. Look, up and down and up and down. Let's do it this way. Yep. You're speaker. You were a speaker when I invited you to co-host. Okay, go ahead.
No. Okay, I think I got it. Let's see. Yeah, boom. Looks like we're cooking with gas. Not broken, just temporarily stunned with levity. Thanks, Jenny. We get that down here too. We get people trying to go find the Austrian boys choir is a one they often can I see that while I'm here? I heard that's great. Yeah, no. And then you take them out, you get them eaten by a crocodile. It's fun. We love visitors. Come on down. It's like Florida on steroids. Um, let's see. Now I got a whole bunch of ads in the nest already, but I haven't got any of the other stuff. So I'll just stop here and say good morning, Kyiv. Uh, it is a pretty good morning in Kyiv, I believe. That not that much missile and drone activity. It appears to be focused again on the cities closest to the border that are getting all the regular Russian attention with ballistics and glide bombs and everything else. They need to set another one of those traps for the glide bombers up north of Sumy because they threw some glide bombs into the city yesterday and killed a 13-year-old girl at a bus stop. So they got to be so proud of themselves. In return, of course, the destruction of Russian cargo shipping on and fuel shipping on the Sea of Azov and the facilities that host that activity continue to get quite a lot of attention. And although the numbers are now thinning because, of course, the SBS is running out of targets, but I can tell you we're 14 additional today to add to the 28 yesterday, taking us up to a grand total of an even 90 of these cargo vessels of Russia that it left on the tried to use on the Sea of Azov to reinforce fuel supply in Crimea, yet with no naval coverage whatever. No escorts, no planned escorts, cargo shipping that's vital to breaking the blockade of Crimea, which we've all seen going on, and not providing any support at all for those vessels to prevent what everybody knew was going to happen, and that is the attacks on those vessels with air and sea drones, but not sea drones in this case, as we talked about yesterday, because Ukraine is focusing on disabling these vessels with top attacks on the forecastles, aft castles where the bridge is, or the top decks where the oil pumping and piping equipment is, and disabling these vessels so they can't be used in their intended purpose, and setting some on fire and burning them basically to the waterline. Another really good video or two still out overnight, showing multiple fuel vessels burned to the waterline, which, as I pointed out yesterday, is the most environmentally sensitive manner in which to destroy shipping. And to the Vatniks who've been in my DMs or whatever, fucking wordsmithing over the fact that you put out a thing and you compare the losses to one of the worst World War II convoy in history, 22 ships and 142,000 tons lost. They're getting persnippety at me. They're fact checking me over the fact that yeah, sure, Russia may have lost, or this may have affected 175,000 tons of cargo in this case, but you didn't sink them all, so you can't claim it as sunk. Okay, fine, whatever. We're up to 90 now, and I'm sure we've gone over the value of whatever happened in World War II, even with stuff that is burned at the waterline or burned to the waterline. Some of the cargo vessels have also burned out in the engine area and in some of their stores. But yeah, most of this cargo is freely floating on the Azov Sea, and probably a real attractant for pirates at this point. I think there might be some room for some international vessels to want to go in there and police piracy. Smokey, how's your speaking voice?
My speaking voice is okay, even though my head is still rather fuzzy. Well, it started off fuzzy to begin with. I just wanted to interject here. I take issue with what they're talking about, criticizing you for saying it was not that much. My guesstimate, if we're talking about 90 ships now, my guesstimate is that we're looking at upwards of 300,000 tons of shipping being affected by this.
Totally. Oh, I can't turn my mic off again. Totally agree, Smokey, because it was 175,000 tons at 48 vessels. We're at 90 vessels now, so I totally agree that we'd be up above 300,000 tons over a 4 or 5 day period. Now that convoy that was lost in World War II, I think the U-boats and the well, I'm not sure how many days the U-boats and the Luftwaffe attacked it, or if they did it multiple times. But
It was a
22
better.
of 35 vessels were lost.
It was a better part of 2 weeks.
Oh, so see, we're doing way better than that.
Yeah,
The USF is just kicking some serious ass here, knocking out enemy shipping.
yeah, I'm pondering the consequences here. We're now in what, day 15 of the 40-day campaign. Um, I'd say it's going pretty well. Uh,
We're day 17 today.
Day 17. Okay, I was miscounting a little bit. I'll
Yeah, well,
blame it
that's
on
because
blame it
the
on the
AI
COVID.
does that for you. The summary was a day behind.
Yeah, so we're eliminating. Well, we got all this stuff that's now just kind of floating loose around in the Sea of Azov. That's not good. They can't get tugs out there to any of it because the Ukrainians are blowing up the tugs.
Just the one. Just what? No, sorry, a couple. There were a couple that went out from Kerch and tried to recover these vessels, and probably did get some of them. But yeah, they attacked. Well, two of them. Just two.
And as it stands right now, if they do get those towed into port, that means they're going to be fixed targets. They're not going. Do they even have the facilities really left to unload on the Crimean and Peninsula side? So that stuff, that all those port facilities have been getting whacked pretty hard as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and certainly anything that's got tankage for fuel, I've got no idea how they expect they're going to be unloading that, and if they're just simply queuing up tank trucks at the pier to try to fill them directly from the ship because they don't really have any kind of transfer facility anymore. I'm just this is going to get, just even if they try to recover, if they manage to get some of this stuff in port, it's going to get even worse. I'm just
I,
thinking about the havoc that's going to happen over the next few days. Yeah,
I'm hoping it.
it's magnificent, and
I'm
I'll
hoping it
listen.
will get worse. Sorry. No, I'm hoping it will get worse. And but I don't think that all of them weren't some of them with food smoky.
Well, there's about 2/3 of them, from what I got in the count, were fuel related, and there were some bulk haulers in there. There was an interesting video of one where it had been tagged apparently with two drones. One blew out one of the cargo holds that blew the lid off of it or partly off of it, and the other one just everlastingly just shredded the bridge, the control section. So it just really if this is the kind of way that they're actually hitting these ships, there's not it's going to be very hard for them to do anything, moving anything around with them, and I'm at a loss to figure out how they expect they're going to be able to do it.
Oh, I think they're going to stop the activity. So, yeah, the other part of, as Jeff was alluding to there, and I said yesterday, the port at Kerch can only unload two vessels at a time. It only has two berths and can load or unload two vessels at a time, and that turnover takes basically a day. Even if it's a 7,000 ton tanker, they can probably do it quicker than that, but they turn those over basically one a day. So they would be waiting out in there. What they did is they filled up a whole bunch of tankers and pushed them over to Crimea, and just thought they'd park them off the coast and be able to bring them in whatever rate they could to fill up the lines to break the gasoline and diesel crisis in Crimea, and just didn't provide any military cover. It's as simple as that. And when these vessels were found out to have been there, they have scattered. A little bird tells me they're actually all taking shelter over in Kavkaz, smoky. So look for a big red circle on that later today. Um, the Kavkaz port is where they also had previously been loading oil out of on coastal tankers, but that has been hit multiple times because it's also the place where the roll-on, roll-off ferries, rail roll-on, roll-off ferries were loading at. So we haven't seen any attacks there in a while, but I imagine you'll hear the name Kafkaz again in the next couple of days because I think quite a lot of these vessels have taken shelter over there. If they continue to want to keep targeting them, I think that it's you'll either hear Kafkaz or they'll move on to other things. But they've also stopped the activity loading at Taganrog port and the Azov small marine terminal there because both of those facilities have been struck. One striking vessel at berth in Taganrog and the other striking the oil storage terminal at Azov. So essentially what I think is Russia will stop this activity as they will identify it as the absolute catastrophe it is and hope that Ukraine goes away and they can resume their export of grain, which I will remind you is also stopped. So they really stepped on their dick here because not only did they get their fuel, their attempt to break the blockade for fuel get absolutely interdicted in the most spectacular way, they've also now had to close traffic because it's a war zone for all grain vessels that were going out that way, and fertilizer and the other things that Russia moves out of its country on river tankers and then takes out to this. They'll transship it and move it on somewhere else, but they can't even do that. They can't take vessels with grain and fertilizer and stuff out of the under the Kerch Strait, and so they've stepped on it themselves. And all already the farmers who would load grain in Russia or occupied Crimea, the trucks are backing up at the port already because they're harvesting grain right now, and they want to ship it out. They want to ship their stolen grain out and make money as quick as they can in the occupied territories. And a lot of that was going out as of, and or coming down the river if it's Russia's stuff down the Don, and uh, no longer happening. So I think Russia will stop the oil movement activity in hope that Ukraine will go away and they can resume their other materials that are going out. Of which one, food, grain. I absolutely think that it is a valid military target to target a grain ship if it's carrying stolen Russian or stolen Ukrainian grain, which Russia's been. It's a war crime, and punishing a war crime immediately, Prince Heather would tell you, is an absolute necessity if you want to deal with, if you want to cause people to not be recidivist. And so this Crimean thing going on now for the fifth day, up to 90, 14 struck today. We'll see the video as time goes up, but here again, this is brilliant activity, and hearing people talk about this around the world is interesting. Um, Karen sent me Sal or referred me again to Sal Mergliano's thing. What's inside shipping? And thank you. But he spent 40 minutes saying exactly what I said yesterday, but not quite as much about the Ukraine war thing. He's a very smart guy, but sometimes if he's not, uh, uh, frankly, I mean, I hate some people say, "Oh, we should get him on the show." I should, but he's not telling us anything I'm not telling you already. So hearing it twice, I guess hear it from somebody else, you'll believe it. Um, but this activity is they're attacking these vessels from the top, at the bridge, at the top decks, so that they can disable and knock out these things, these ships, but not sink them, not put torpedoes through the hull and cause major environmental damage. I'm kind of tongue in cheek, but to be honest, they're showing quite a lot of environmental responsibility in their approach to attacking this Russian shipping. And even though you may feel sorry for cargo vessels or the sailors that sail on cargo vessels, these are a valid military target, each and every one of them. And anybody who gets killed doing it is either carrying out an illegal act or is acceptable collateral damage to take fuel off of the to be able to successfully embargo Crimea, which is what they're doing. They're laying siege to Crimea, and it's just beautiful thing to see. So before I pack the nest with the other stuff I'm going to jam up there, and Jennie can tell you her top story of the day. I want to remember everybody that we're here to also highlight the fundraisers that we have in the nest. April Huggett is out walking right now between Kyiv and her unit over in the east. She's got a fundraiser that she's operating to try to get them the things they need in 93rd Alcatraz. Rebecca Makiowski, her fundraiser through her link in her bio that's up there. Either one of the War Doggo ones, which are my favorite. Now, and I heard a brief interview with Preston Stewart, a question he had for President Zelensky when he was lucky enough to get to speak to him, and he asked him about what the how important it is. Say something about how important it is for the individual donors who are providing aid uh, to to assist the soldiers in doing what they're doing. And he basically said it's invaluable to those soldiers because in wartime, believe it or not, people do tend to forget about the soldiers as we're focusing on the civilians, casualties, and the other horrors of what Russia's doing here. But I want each and every person in the 18th National Guard and the SBU Alpha and the Omega Group in National Guard and the folks in Azov from any unit that we've ever featured or spoken to on here to know each and every day that there are people thinking about you folks at the front line who are holding the line because you play such an essential role. We spend so much time talking about technology and drones and stuff that every bit of aid that you give to the proactive fundraiser or the shotgun fundraiser, any of these things lets the folks that are putting where rubber meets the road know that you haven't forgot about them. So it really does make a psychological impact in addition to any of the substance of what you can provide. So it's important to keep doing it. And as others have said in the previous couple of days, it is getting harder and harder for everybody to raise money, especially as Ukraine does better, because people say, "Oh, they've got this. Ukraine's got this. We can take our foot off the accelerator." You cannot. You cannot. Nation states cannot, and we'll talk about that in a lot more detail later. Nation states cannot take their foot off the accelerator here, and nor can you if you're supporting Ukraine or you have the ability to do so, and or you develop the ability to do so. Every dollar that you provide shortens this war a tiny little incremental bit by making Ukraine more effective and Russia less effective. And it's all about time. Everybody, I think it would be a relatively um, uh, well, we'd win the vote. It might not be a consensus, but you'd win the vote if you took if objective military experts all looked at this situation and they would conclude that Vladimir Putin has lost this war. It's only a matter of how much time it's going to take to drag it out to its inevitable conclusion. And imagine if you provide donations in this time to help speed up when that happens, somebody won't end up like the bloke at the end of All Quiet on the Western Front that gets shot on the last day, right? If the last day never occurs then and we move it this way, Ukrainian soldiers will stop dying each and every day. And so if you provide donations to anything, the Shotgun Appeal, the proactive folks for the SBU guys and 18th National Guard, or buy a book if you're trying to win people over to the cause, or would like to familiarize them with the cause of what's going on here in Ukraine, any of those authors, they're all good books. Also, Frontline Kit, Richard's group, uh, uh, making superbly crafted drones for Achilles and helping him get other things. He was in a van. They got a couple of vans. He'll get all. He's like a scrounge. He's actually quite a lot like War Doggo, right? They got and helped deliver these two vans for I think the disabled hospital, like Unbroken, I think, or yeah, it probably was Unbroken because that's where they're at in Lviv, and delivering vans, making drones. His factory's running uh, uh, very well now because he got some assistance from the military to help build some drones for Achilles. But they're still raising money to make a lot more of them if they can for him, and have helped other people out in making. It's kind of doing not for money, but just for the cost of making them, making drones for other providers who want to have drones too. And his team just really makes superbly crafted drones. So help any of them out. Help the Brazilian sisters out who are doing humanitarian work in Ukraine. Help the Stroopwafel guy out, Turixis and those guys who drive medical equipment in. All these causes are very important. Whatever strikes your fancy, we've had a look at all those folks, and they're all very ethical. The money that you give, the absolute maximum of it that can go to the cause that they're talking about to buy parts and whatever for drones is what's happening. And they bring their receipts. They're transparent about what they do. And they're just nice people, and they come and talk to us periodically about what they're doing. So if you can help any of them out, please do. And Jennie, I'm going to put some more stuff in the nest. What's the most important story you want to talk about today?
Um, I'm not sure if it's the most important. Um, I haven't heard anything about this. This was updated yesterday, late last night. It's that Ukraine is now putting in a new type of special forces that will focus on deep strikes within Russia. And their special focus will be to minimize Russia's capability to conduct this war. And we have in Sweden, because Swedish is a Germanic language, our special forces are all called jägare, which literally means hunters. So you have different units, and each of those units have a special competency. So you have the regular jägare, which would be the army ranger sort of type person. Um, they they work in teams of six, and they penetrate between enemy line and take out strategic targets behind enemy lines. And also they do recon, and so they signal back to the other parts of the Swedish military where they are. And it looks like Ukraine is doing something similar. um, this would be something our regular Jägare would do. You have Fallskärmsjägare, which is the paratroopers, and you have Kustjägare, which is an amphibious assault unit. They're assault those kind of soldiers, and they operate either these are the ones we will launch either at like a landing from the sea, or they operate in rivers. In Sweden, these units you have to apply to them, even though we have conscription, and these guys are from the start because conscripts. They You have to apply to these units. You will not be assigned to them. They may advise you during your assessment period and say you would probably do well here. They will also tell you, we don't think this. Um, so it looks like this is something that Ukraine is going to do as well. I think it's amazing. Every country should have these type of units where you do the deep penetration behind enemy and take out strategic. So that was one. Uh, and then there is a Russian politician that has now been he's now being called a foreign agent, and that is Boris Nadezhdin. He has been he's I'm trying to
This is
say
the
his
bloke
name.
that they banned from running for president back when they last had a fake election for president, right?
Yeah, and he was going to run for the next election. Now he's running for like a spot in the state Duma, and because he's a foreign, he's now being called, or they have in Swedish we call it stamping them. Um, he has now been like the government has now said that he is a foreign agent, and that makes him automatically disqualified for being in a state Duma election. That is one way of getting rid of your opponents without imprisoning them and looking like a totally bad guy. But um, he he said that he will yeah, so he when he couldn't do the regular election, then he decided to go for the Duma, and because of a change in the laws in 2024, people who are designated as foreign agents cannot run in those elections. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy, because I'm pretty sure that um, that Putin's like, how do I get rid of this guy? Because he probably will be elected, and then everybody will know I'm a fraud because nobody knows anybody who voted for Putin. And here, just designate him a foreign agent, and then he will have to go away. Easy. Oh, it's brilliant, and he doesn't look like the total asshole because he didn't lock him up. But he's trying to
It
get that overturned.
this has happened. It's happened before, and yeah, it's a classic Russian or KGB-ish sort of way to move ban people. It's Lukashenko does this. Authoritarians who try to pretend they're having elections love to ban people. I mean, imagine if they had a free and fair election in Russia right now. You know, Count Binface might end up running and winning because of they. I would say if they had a free and fair election, anybody, it'd be anybody but Putin would win by a massive landslide.
I know, and I understand that, that becomes. I don't know. Did you see the meme coming out from the last election where because Putin only got like what 89% of the votes or something, and it's a meme, and you have Kim Jong Un and you have Xi, and they're all laughing at Putin, and they're like, "You are so bad at faking your own election, because we get 100% of the votes." you know. So it was hilarious. I thought it was so hilarious
But my
because
favorite
he's.
is when the local candidate that Putin wants to win wins by 10,000 votes, and the population is only about 7,500 people in that area. You know, and I mean wins by that many votes. The other guy they might give him a bit just to show. Yeah, they usually put it well over the top. They don't even know how to fake elections well. But yeah, so but this disquiet, this not wanting people to run against him. This might be the sort of signal that Putin would make that he doesn't want anybody to try to challenge his authority in any of even the sham political offerings they have there, because um, there are quite a lot of not a number of military bloggers, political bloggers, taxi cab drivers, different mouthy people in prison, and people who are still on the street, propagandists that are either saying the quiet part out loud and not taking the final step, or actually denouncing Putin. It's happening, and people don't appear to be getting arrested in broad numbers. But if they really do go out to the edge, you can clearly see what happens to him. That Senin bloke, the minor military person who did the video that got 20 million views or something like that, that called out Putin or demanded a meeting. But remember, he only wanted to talk about the conditions of the soldiers and the fact they were being cheated and lied to. He wasn't an anti-war person, so this is why he survived. He got arrested, disappeared for a few days, and when he came back, he was singing a vastly different tune, meaning I don't want to, draw attention to myself, sort of thing anymore, because me and my entire gene pool were probably just threatened with extermination. So he's decided to shut up and go away quietly, which is what Putin is hoping this candidate does. But others will probably get brave and speak up. And this is how political change happens in Russia, or might in this case. Um, Putin never ever is worried about facing a free and fair election, anybody at the ballot box, and in fact, he's going to fill the state Duma and with his own hand-picked candidates, which then no one will run against in any serious amount. And if some independent candidate is smart, and it happens to organize himself to get on the ballot in a way that Putin feels he can't take off without being exposed as an absolute authoritarian dictator, he will then do things like they did at that election in Belgorod a year and a half ago. Bob, if the guy's name's Bob Jones, 12 Bob Joneses will show up on the ballot alongside the candidate Putin wants to win from United Russia, and further try to confuse and make the vote be suppressed. But at the end of the day, they're going to get all those ballots and count them. And if they need to make sure that their guy wins, he'll win by an amount that's more than the number of the total electorate that's in there. But don't confuse, anytime you read something from one of these Russian folks that's well known, as you know, I was picking the scabs off Mikhail Khodorkovsky's thing the other day in relation to the oil business, just on some factual clarification things. But I also just wanted to point out that he, even though he has denounced Putin and he's living in exile and all that, they still have an incredibly difficult time, some Russians do, for going that final step in the epiphany and saying what needs to happen right now is we need to stop this war and get the fuck out of Ukraine in its entirety, right? They've got to be willing to make a commitment in free will like that openly, and if they can't do that, they're still not on our side. Gary Kasparov would do it. There are others who actually have made that step. They wouldn't be the first one, but I'll tell you, there's very few of these people inside Russia, soldiers, propagandists, and all these things, who might be pointing out the truth, might be saying the quiet part out loud, and might be using some of the classic Russian means of communicating their true feelings, but stating it painfully and directly that this war's got to end and we've got to get the hell out of Ukraine in total, because it was an absolute horrific, terrible mistake. And then hopefully, if they go beyond that, they say, and it's one we're never going to make again because we're done being imperialistic colonizers and genociders, right? Recognize how bad you are and make a commitment to stop doing it anymore is the bare minimum. And we don't see that from people. And I'm telling you, I'm saying this to you now because there's multiple of these people getting platformed, like by The Economist, this oligarch that they put out, that are not our friends, right? They haven't made that commitment in free will yet to say we've got to stop this war and get out of it. They talk about ending the war, but they never talk about it in detail. And if you do get into the detail, it's always ending it on Russia's terms, or that you've got to stop the war because the world can't afford for Russia to break up, or that they've got nuclear weapons and that's scary. All the things that are happening now, that you will see this oligarch and many others start lining up. They're not your friend, like Alexei Navalny isn't or wasn't, unless they make that full commitment to representative government in their own country and stopping the colonization and genocide of their neighbors. That if they're not willing to commit that we need to get out of Ukraine in total, they're not your friend yet, and you have every right to still press them to do the right thing. And people who are ready to let Russia off the hook are going to become my severe enemy here as we move through the final phases of this war. Do not let Russia off the hook, especially if you love Russia, if you think Russia deserves to exist as a country and might have a future, then the only and best thing that can happen to them is an absolutely humiliating defeat in this war and going home with their tails between their legs and being isolated until such time as they meet the conditions of reentry to polite society, like turning over all the war criminals for adjudication, like paying reparations to Ukraine, and absolutely first off the block, finding and returning all the stolen children. Bare minimum, folks. Those aren't the 1991 territories and those things I just set up above. Those are just the things that you need to do in order to be recognized as a human being. So that's the starter for what's absolutely necessary in as a result to close out this war. But I would argue there are a lot of other things that Russia should do before I'd be willing to let them off the hook, and that in particular is not making preparations and mental states which mean that it's definitely going to happen again. I would want, as part of an armistice they signed with me over this war, if I had any say about it, to demand that Russia rewrite its textbooks under international oversight and then have to start teaching actual history to high school students and stop living in this altered reality that we see presented by Russians like Patrushev, that are still claiming that Ukraine's not a valid country, that it doesn't have a right to exist. That or Putin, his plan for what's going to happen is he is either going to take all of Ukraine or he's going to take the part which he has identified, and the rest of the Ukraine is not going to remain sovereign. It's going to do his bidding, or else they're going to get another invasion. That's the position they're still at. So there's no reason to let these assholes off the hook right just yet. No reason whatever. And there will not be a reason to let them off the hook unless they're willing to make a commitment in free will that we've got to get out of Ukraine. We've got to stop this war and get out of Ukraine, bare minimum, and then we can start to talk about where else they're willing to go. But if it's not going to go to having a representative government inside Russia, the whole thing should be allowed to just collapse and die. Russia is the non-essential country. It's non-essential. There is no good reason Russia has to stay together as one big entity. There is no reason that we can't embargo it all, 100% of everything. No food, no water, no medicine, no resources, no culture, no sport, no nothing. Russia could be completely embargoed because it's self-sufficient for what its needs are, and there's nothing it produces that's absolutely essential to the world. The rest of the world can get along just fine, even though it's that big carved out chunk of the world up there at the top. Doesn't make any difference. It's not unique and special. And that right there, that's kind of the message that Russia needs to get. You're just another country. You're not unique and special, and the world can live without you. You are the inessential country. If you'd like to join voluntarily as just another country in a couple of generations, we'll be happy to let you back, provided you can demonstrate that you've got a government that is using the vast resources of that chunk of land that you hold for the benefit of your population generally, and that you're no longer interested in being an intimidatory and predatory neighbor to those who are around you. That's where we ought to go. Russia can be isolated. We can do without Russia. and I'm not saying I want to. I'm not saying genocide Russia or invade it and eliminate them all. I'm not saying the things Russia says. I'm just saying make them be apart from the world until they demonstrate that they're ready to be a part of the world again. And that's they're going to have to pay some dues to get there. But those dues, while they may seem incredibly burdensome to any Russian or people who are sympathetic to the Russians, I can guarantee you are not at all either unnecessary or overburdensome, because they owe Ukraine more than they will ever be able to repay Ukraine. There is no way we're ever going to see all these children that they've stolen ever again back in Ukrainian families. It's just not going to happen. It's not possible. They won't even find them all. It's not possible to repay Ukraine or the world for the execution of prisoners of war and the basically ubiquitous torture of POWs and civilians that are captured by Ukraine. They'll never repay for all that pain and suffering. Never. They'll never pay for the cost of their chemical warfare that have gone more than 10,000 uses of in this war. They'll certainly never recover the cost in total for the Novokakhovka Dam and all the environmental and economic damage done due to that. They won't ever recover that stuff. So they have to absolutely recover the things that they can recover from Russia in this war as a bare minimum. Not There won't be any concessions on the basics. The basics, all the 1991 territory back, all the war criminals sent for identification and adjudication, all the uses of chemical weapons, execution of prisoners of war, and mass torture of and medical inappropriate medical torture of POWs and civilians by Russia. If they're not punished for these war crimes, then they'll happen again. So it's not a concession for Ukraine to say, "Oh, we can give this up." They can't give that up. In fact, the world can't give up the prosecution of war crimes. And there, under no circumstances can we ever say that a country can go to war against another country, steal that country's children, and not have every one of those returned, along with other reparations they should pay. I don't know what the value of the reparations are. I don't know how long Russia would have to pay them. I guarantee you, we could set up a system where Russia shares its absolute incredible natural wealth, the profits from its incredible natural wealth, not with a few hundred people at the top of the Russian society, but with the society more broadly in Russia, rebuild a society that you'd want to live in, that people want to have children in, and have ample money left over to pay for the damages they've done in Ukraine over time. It could be done equitably, but it's probably not ever going to happen. So the things that Ukraine has already given up and won't ever in this war are concessions enough. Concessions enough. Now let's not talk anymore about concessions Ukraine will make in order to have this war concluded. It's now time to talk about only concessions that Russia will make in order to end this war and return to polite society sometime, and what you're willing to do to get there. Because, like I talked about personal donations as we started off, it's absolutely essential that every country right now, if you're a real, true ally of Ukraine, give them absolutely everything that they ask you for, or that you've got that they could use in this war to finish it quickly. Finish it quickly, meaning finish Russia quickly. Make sure that Russia can't get any supplies to its troops at the front line. Make sure that Russia's economy suffers maximally so that it goes into collapse sooner. make sure that every humanitarian aid and support can be given to Ukraine so that minimize the death and discomfort of them in, with, because this war ain't over. This is the thing, the urgency here. This war ain't anywhere near over, and Russia is an atrocity a day machine. So making sure that maximum pressure is put on Russia, maximum pressure on Russia, and no discussion of any concessions with Russia for Russia at all. No, none of this. Oh, we've got to keep them in the world because they got nukes, folks. We lived through the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union broke up, by my recollection, there were 4 countries that received nuclear weapons as a result of that breakup. And guess what? The world lived through it. In fact, there was no major scare about somebody using a nuclear weapon during the dissolution of the Soviet Union and it going to its place. Governments, like the government that I remember at the time in America, were trying to keep it very quiet, in fact, while they went about trying to make sure all the nuclear weapons were consolidated in one location and were still abiding by the treaties that the previous Soviet Union had put in place, right? Back when there used to be a responsible U.S. administration that didn't have to try to, trumpet every success and was willing to have successes that nobody would ever find out about for 20 or 50 years, right? Responsible government people. I know it sounds like it's fantasy at this point, but we've gone through this before. Don't let anybody tell you that we got to be scared. This is another step of escalation management. We can't let Russia break up because it'll be all too scary. The only scary part about Russia breaking up, if that happened as a result of economic collapse and social disorder and political chaos because Putin died or needed to be removed, if Russia collapses and breaks up, it'll go from being the one inessential country to 57, and Jennie's grandkids will have to learn a whole lot more capitals in order to pass the geography test. That is the only bad thing that realistically happened, because nobody in the component parts of a country that breaks up from Russia, if they're holding nuclear weapons, they will not be. Let's say they were located where they're at right now, and they just end up inside the republics they're currently sitting inside, and they all break up into their independent oblasts. Then we got like 89 countries. Well, they aren't going to break up quite that many, and there's still only going to be about, I don't know, a dozen that will have possession at the time of nuclear weapons. That's nuclear weapons in the form of warheads that are in deep storage that haven't been removed and probably need to go to a maintenance and assembly area that isn't even in their oblast. So they probably don't have all the parts to put together a ballistic missile and deliver it to somebody. But there's those nuclear weapons, the 4,000 nuclear warheads that Russia maintains, will remain in deep storage where they were when the Soviet Union broke up. And there will be agreements put in place with the people who hold those by serious people who are worried about nuclear detente, that they will also, just like they did when the Soviet Union broke up, go into safe hands until that country either decides they're going to keep holding them. Because remember, holding nuclear weapons is an incredibly, phenomenally expensive task that needs lots and lots of maintenance and security. And I'll bet there's tons of countries that don't have any, tons of provinces in Russia that would have neither the interest or the means in holding nuclear weapons, much like Ukraine didn't at the time. But whoever gives up nuclear weapons at that time should get some security guarantees. And that's exactly some real security guarantees. But this is not unthinkable for Russia to break up. If you're worried about nuclear weapons, that's good. Keep your focus on nuclear weapons, and you can critique the manner in which they are secured after those countries break up, or maybe what they're worth. Because most of these places, if Russia broke up into its component parts, wouldn't be able to afford maintenance and wouldn't have an interest in a nuclear weapon. Yakutia, for instance, ain't going to want them, but I'll bet they'll be glad to sell them to the United States or another nuclear power like France to get them out of their hands and get some aid and support for what's going to be an incredibly difficult period of time getting out of the hole that Russia's put you in. Because guess what? Every one of those component part countries, if it all breaks up into bits, is going to own their tiny percentage of the reparations that are still due to Ukraine. Yeah, yeah, they are. Because everybody who lives in Russia across the entire country needs to own what they've done. They own the Russian government. I didn't vote them in, they did. I don't live in that location. They do. They need to. I can't understand. This is Trump and the Republicans would accept this, as well as liberals. You own what your government does on your behalf, and you got to pay the piper when it turns out to be absolute dog shit. And this one's absolute dog shit. You've paid. They know what they're paying now, right? They know when they stand in gasoline lines. They know that Putin's broken the social contract with them. They know their government's becoming more intrusive and repressive and all the things that they wanted out of their life if they just turned over power to Putin. Well, they've made a terrible, terrible deal, is what they did. And as that comes home to roost to them, they need to recognize that and be willing to work away from that. But part of working away from that is going to be paying the piper for letting it happen in the first place, because you are responsible. If you were in Russia from 1991 through 2008, or sorry, 2000, I don't know, yeah, 8, when he took over the second time, when power got really consolidated, there was still some time to affect things in that time. And I talked to dozens of Russians when I was in Russia in the early 2000s, about why aren't you politically engaging here, and not a single one of them would ever they weren't interested. They were buying into the social contract. Buying in voluntarily to the social contract means you owe the price of that contract. And the price of that contract is your country has done genocide and billions and trillions of dollars of damage in Ukraine. And there's no getting, and a whole bunch of war crimes along the way. And there is no getting away from that. So if there's a cost to be paid for that, you owe your portion. You do. And I do not want to see. Well, we need to be vigilant and fight back from anybody who says or publishes anything that says this garbage that's now come out from The Economist, that they allowed this oligarch to put together this false argument about how Russia was essential and we couldn't let it fail, and that we don't want to let it slip into the hands of the Chinese. And they don't want to pay the piper for any of the things they've done. If Russia becomes a vassal state in order to stay together as a country, they did that to Russia. Or I didn't do it. They did it. They sold themselves into Russian slavery, not me. And they will have to pay the piper for that. That is very possibly one of the things that will cause the country to break up, I suggest. But this guy laying this thing out like there's 4 or 5 things that can happen, or you have to accept Russia as this. He defines sovereignty as this major power that's too big to fail. It's never going away, and you have to give it its due, right? None of that is true. Russia is the non-essential country. There is nothing about Russia that is unique and special and in the world that if it ceased to exist as a country, nothing massive bad would happen. There's nothing lost. All the little bits of what they call Russian culture would start being whatever culture they actually are, and it wouldn't be lost. Whatever they made before or produced, it's all produced or made somewhere else. And whatever they do in the world, wow, all that could go. The manner in which Russia is exerting its influence in Central Africa, I'd be happy to see the back of that. The absolute nefarious activity that they get up to inside the political systems of America, or Britain, or any of the European countries, or even my country here in Australia, be very, very happy to see the back of that. And imagine how much better your life will be if you don't have Russia trying to foment discord inside your country between you and somebody who doesn't look like you or think like you or came from somewhere else, whatever the reasons they're using in your country to try to foment discord, they're doing it. We see the evidence of them doing it everywhere. And wouldn't the world be better if that didn't happen? Wouldn't it be nice if Russia went away and we didn't see that anymore? I'd be actually that yes, that would be a good thing if Russia went away and did that. And when you're talking about some of the stuff Russia gets involved in order to propagate its influence and control as it is over the world, the Jeffrey Epstein thing, which was clearly a Russian information operation and honey trap operation that started out with one pervert, but was quickly overtaken and facilitated by Russia. And therefore, all the exploitation of all the women that happened in that situation, that's Russia too. They own some of that. Jeffrey Epstein owns quite a lot of it as the originator, but every participant in it owns their bit, and Russia absolutely helped facilitate and propagate that network of pedophiles. It's clear in the evidence that they did. Known current FSB people involved with Jeffrey Epstein over long periods of time, and payments made for things which are unexplained is absolutely positively them being involved in facilitating a honey trap operation. That could go. If I never saw another one of these Epstein things, I'd be quite happy. I'd be quite happy to see the back of that. So there's nothing Russia's doing that's essential and good. And you could live without them for a period of time until they demonstrated that they were going to be a good member of society again, or embargo them. Why do we want to engage in Russia in the Olympics or business or resources? Just let them be themselves, because they're all caught up in their sovereignty, right? Oh, the sovereignty of Russia. We can't let these other people come over and invade us. Nobody's interested in invading Russia unless it's a means to end this war, which Ukraine has every right to do. But they're not going to invade and conquer Russia. Nobody wants Russia. The Russians don't want Russians. Listen to them. That's why they always want to go someplace else. They're not interested in hanging on to Russia, or nobody else is interested in hanging on to Russia any more than the Russians are. And so nobody's coming to threaten and take over Russia. So they need to understand what real sovereignty is. Sovereignty is living on your own with the means that you've got available to you and becoming a viable and sustainable government for the society in which you live. I'm not saying you have to become a liberal democracy. I'm not, or a presidential or a parliamentary or whatever. But you need to be a representative government that is taking in the means of production in your country and distributing the benefits of that production evenly enough to keep society wanting to have children and grow up and proceed through the thing. If you're doing that, that's the bare minimum. I obviously have a predilection for wanting to deal with liberal democracies, but who am I to tell Russia how to generate their own form of government? It's not up to me. It would be the height of hypocrisy of me to define what kind of government Russia has to have. Couldn't care less, other than the fact that I'd like all the Russians that I know to agree that they want that form of government, but they have to do some work themselves, and they haven't done that work yet. The next 30 years are going to be incredibly hard times for Russians, incredibly hard time. But I don't feel sorry for them one tiny little bit, and I'm not interested in helping them until they get along the path long enough to be able to demonstrate that they're a country that's approaching becoming essential, because they're the inessential country right now, but they keep trying to paint themselves. And if you can get something up in the Economist, you know that the editors will let it get through the Economist and be published, means they've took a look at it and, well, we don't really agree with that, but we're willing to accept critique it linguistically and logically. They didn't do their job. They were either bought off, bulldozed, bamboozled, whatever, because the arguments put forward here by this guy And the other Vatniks that I've heard that we make us need to be unduly worried about nuclear weapons if Russia breaks up into its component parts are missing it entirely. The only way for Russia to become a good country is for it to go through a massive, massive epiphany. This is why each and every one of these people that I come across that has something to say because they're Russian about Russia, I'm willing to hear them all out, but only up until for the first few minutes. If it doesn't start off with, we need to end this war and get the fuck out of Ukraine, and then carry on with the rest of it. If they don't have those two things to say because of they've reached the epiphany, I've got almost no time for them. But I did take the time to read this very complicated thing that this guy put in the Economist because it so many people were looking at it and taking it so seriously that I said, all right, God damn it, I got to read it myself. And it's spurious arguments about something which is fundamentally, principally untrue. And the editors of the Economist should have left it out rather than accept it, or put a counterpoint into it rather than let it stand, because it is an argument in four or five parts, which, like their textbooks, has so many explanations for the war in Ukraine, like 15 or 16, but they totally miss the point. And by the time they're done reading the 15 or 16 things, you just kind of like, all right, well, whatever. You're entitled to your view. No, you're not. You are not entitled to your view, because your view about this war ending, with anything, a necessity of this war ending, with Ukraine, with Russia intact, and as a sovereign nation by their definition, meaning it has rights to be revered and influence its neighbors, is absolutely, totally fucking bullshit and needs to be called out at the very front. Sorry for that massive rant, Jennie, but well, it had been building up for about 12 hours.
No worries. And I agree with you. I I can't think of a single thing that, is needed in my life that comes out of Russia. So if they go away and break up, it's not going to impact my life that much, except for maybe my nation's safety becomes slightly better. That's it. It's not going to get worse. It can't get any fucking worse. Um, we are among the cool kids now, since we are an enemy of of Russia. We're a hostile nation, or whatever the hell they call us. Um, so we're part of the cool kids again. That kind of went away 200 years ago when we decided to be a friendly nation, and now we're just pissed off because we have all that bottled up anger for being these little peaceniks up here, and um, and Russia's like, yeah, hold my beer, come at me, and now it looks like something is going on, because we're no longer just sitting idly by, and we are saying, hey, you know what? We do want a piece of your shadow fleet. And so we're taking tankers. And that, I think, is the reason why we saw all these boats going unescorted yesterday. They're not getting as much money for those boats as they are getting for the boats up here in the Baltic Sea, if they are allowed to pass. And I want to see more countries grabbing them, if for no other reason, just to slow them down, because they have to pay heavy penalties when they get into port late. So it just becomes uh, it just becomes too expensive for them to keep running the scheme. And if that's all I do, unless of course this tanker has been involved in other criminal activities like taking grains from the occupied territories of Ukraine and selling them on the market, then I'm more than happy to have my country aid and assist in this. And I know that Sweden does this, and this is actually ties into a weird thing that happened yesterday. There were fighter jets going from the UK out over the water, and I have no idea where they were going. They were gone for about 45 minutes. So maybe they were patrolling the channel,
Well,
or
when they came back, did they have any missiles hanging on their rails?
no, they didn't have any. I don't know, because I don't know if the person that told me this actually could see that. Um, she just said that, they fly. She told me, oh, they're flying. I just had a jet fly overhead. So that tells me that this is not like something that happens all the time, because I don't register. I live too close to an Air Force base. I don't think about it when they fly overhead. I don't. I live in between an Air Force base and an airport. I barely register planes nowadays. I register helicopters when they start flying because they have a different sound, and that is not as common. But I don't register airplanes because that happens quite a lot. And the fact that she noticed tells me that this is not a common occurrence. And then she said, oh, they're coming back now. So, and that was about 45 minutes later. But so what Sweden does is we have Gripen either like on standby on the ground, or they're up in the air when we're getting ready to grab a boat. And that is because Russia sent their planes to escort their no, to get rid of Estonia when they were trying to take one. They were close to
Yeah,
boarding.
they did a flyover, a low flyover of an Su-27 on that boarding vessel from Estonia to warn it off. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Sweden has Gripen on either standby because it takes them a little bit longer, apparently. Either have the time to get the planes up in the air when we notice them, or they're already up in the air at the time when Sweden, the coast guards are saying, okay, we're about to board this vessel. And then they send up Gripen to go like, you're not coming here, to scare off the Swedish Coast Guard. So we have things, we have countermeasures to the Russians. And I think this is why they have to allocate resources in our direction. And I do believe that they have Navy vessels in the English Channel that are there as a deterrence for the UK and France to grab their boats, which is something that should not be, that should be taken seriously, a lot more serious than we are. And we should also respond in kind. So if Russia breaks up, this will no longer happen. This is not something that will be part. The thing is, we have become so used to it that we're just like, oh yeah, oh, we had to SU whatever come into Swedish airspace. That should not be like something that you just shrug your shoulders and go like, oh yeah, that happens. It's not common. I don't see any French, or I don't see German planes violating Swedish airspace. It's funny. It is just Russia that does this. So if it breaks up, this will be something in that doesn't happen anymore. They won't. They won't violate airspace, territorial waters, or even do incursions on land on their neighbors. So just applaud a breakdown. Um, Also, another thing that won't happen, which is my last piece that I have, because this pisses me off too, obviously, is that so Russia hacked cameras, CCTV cameras across Europe in NATO countries. Uh, one, it seems like some of these cameras were, landlords putting up cameras in their neighborhood to make sure that nothing gets vandalized, or they want to catch somebody. In Sweden, we are really good at recycling. Maybe they have like a camera there to make sure that they can catch whoever it is that is not recycling properly, because you get hefty fines if you don't. So this is also something that won't happen. They have now discovered a whole network of cameras that have been taken over. One, because people are idiots and they didn't change the password. So I'm thinking the password is either password or 1234. Change. Just it's simple. Just change the goddamn password. so it's harder to hack into. Uh, so it was the cameras with the internet connection, so that you can see what happens, like your ring cameras on your doors or whatever. A lot of those cameras were the ones being hacked, and they are trying to figure the supply routes and see what to Ukraine. The cameras that were discovered were along those routes. So yeah, I'm I'm happy to see this end. I don't want this to be part of our daily lives here in Europe. Anyways, I also had a rant. Uh,
But
n-
fair enough. You're due one. Alex, go ahead.
Hey, just wanted to add to a little bit what you were saying about former KGB and then FSB influence when it comes to the whole Epstein thing. Where do you think that, if you've read the files, you've seen the parts where survivors have talked about other children being killed? It's awful. But where do you think these kids were coming from? They were
Well,
in,
I know where they ended up, on a ranch in El Paso.
yeah, but what happened was they were being pulled out of the former Soviet republics. There's
Yeah,
they're really
and
active.
and Russia in general. In Russia in general, Epstein made he traveled to virtually, well, like 40 of the oblasts of Russia.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's the reports have also made point to note that these have been white children that were there. And you don't like to bring race into it, but in the United States, how many white kids could you kidnap from Disneyland before someone actually noticed? You know?
Yeah, that's how it happens. Epstein and his entourage would go to they have people on the ground inside Russia that were helping identify vulnerable girls that they thought they might recruit in, and they were working it like a spy network, frankly, like it was a KGB operation, because at that point it was right. This wasn't a case where uh, Jeffrey Epstein was running into randos through his rich and famous contacts around America. This is when it became industrialized. Um, the Russian contacts were identifying girls throughout the area, and I'm pretty sure they traveled to like 40 different provinces, oblasts, so that they weren't found out for kidnapping and making girls disappear, so that they wouldn't become noticed in great amounts. And if they did, if it was going to be sort of found out or something, they would not be above. Then they'd try to just pay off the police, or skew the investigation so it went a different direction, or whatever. But yeah, you would not think that dozens and dozens of young women from Russia and the former Commonwealth independent states places would be not, yeah, found out if they were, if they were all definitely little white girls taken out of Disneyland. Yeah.
And it also goes a long way because there's a definitely well documented relationship in the late 90s, early aughts of the large prostitution and trafficking rings that were made up of former FSB, former KGB guys. And like it's well known that those big groups that became massive organized crime groups, they're oligarchs now. They're right up there with anybody else. And it's
Yeah, the human traffickers have done quite well, haven't they?
yeah, they have, and it's they already have a steady pipeline of young girls being, addicted to drugs and shipped to Europe and other parts of the world for prostitution. Making a couple of girls disappear out of there is actually pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And if they get caught, well, you just charge them under the regular laws and let them face the criminal justice system. As long as they don't talk and explain that they were working for the FSB, they're safe.
so this is really interesting. Sweden changed the laws regarding prostitution. Year Now it's like over 10 years ago. And when they did it, I didn't understand why. And then I read a book about a girl from, buttfuck Russia somewhere. I don't know where she came from. She came from, some hole in the ground in the back east. And she was promised that she would be working as it wasn't a model, it was like bartending. And it wasn't in Estonia, it was in one of the Nordic countries, and she ended up in Sweden. And she was stuck in an apartment in central Stockholm, and they just had people coming uh, all hours. And finally, the prostitution ring was busted, and she wrote a book about it. And she told her story about the pipeline. She was never, I don't think that she ever got addicted to drugs, that they got them her hooked on that. But they stole her passport on the ferry because she was obviously first taken to Moscow. From Moscow, then she went to Estonia, and then she got on the ferry. She was raped by some oligarchs in Estonia, and then she was put escorted on a ferry over to Sweden, and that's when the prostitution started on the ferry. They started charging people to have their way with her and do all kinds of things. And then she was stuck in an apartment in Stockholm. And this is really like a big business from Russia. And so nobody would think that this would happen here in Sweden. I certainly didn't think that we would have like a pipeline coming from with girls coming from Russia in Sweden to be prostitutes. And yet here we are. So if you think that your country does not do these things, think again. Uh, it happens everywhere, and these girls are being stolen from all over the place. It's not just Russia; it's all over. Human trafficking is horrific. Anyways, so what Sweden did was we decriminalized the act of prostitution. So the woman or the person, because there are boys being sold as well, they will not be punished because they have been punished. They get therapy and help. We target the people buying and the people trafficking. So selling your body is not illegal. Buying is. And I think that was a stroke of genius actually. Once I understood why they changed the law to the way it is, more people should do that. There's no point, no need to to punish the the victim. We don't need to victimize them again. Anyways, I just needed to say that. Back to you, Alex.
That's how you fight Ruski Mir right there.
Yeah, it is.
Indeed.
Oh,
The other way to fight Ruski Mir is with drones and bombs, and so the summary is out for today from United 24. So what I haven't noted off that so far, of course, with the 28 vessels struck yesterday and 14 additional struck today, is that uh, Russia made a huge mistake and concentrated some troops for. Like an awards presentation thing at Kalmiuski Military Training Center in Donetsk, and they got HIMARS. They got Gimlered, and a bunch of people got killed there. They also struck Russian UAV command posts in Zaporizhia and Donetsk, as well as a few additional substations in Crimea that aren't listed there. You know, and you don't want to leave those out because keeping the power off in Crimea is every bit as important as making sure they don't have any fuel and can't get any more. So yeah, check out Magyar's video that's in the nest of the additional vessels and the targets on the ground that they were able to strike yesterday too,
Well,
because
w-
they're
well,
important.
well. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I just got a news flash. Lindsey Graham has died at the age of 71. Lindsey Graham has died at the
Where did
age
he
of
die?
71. I'm not sure. I literally am looking at the NBC News story, and I knew you would want to know.
Interesting. Lindsey Graham was only 71. I thought he was older than 71, but that's interesting and notable. He was just in Ukraine yesterday. You might remember me saying, fuck Lindsey Graham, which I'll stand by, even though he's dead, because I'm like that. But interesting that he would die. He wasn't in a meeting with J.D. Vance anywhere, was he?
Not that I know of. What it says is that he died Saturday night of a brief and sudden illness, according to his office. His family appreciates prayers at this time and asks for privacy during this incredibly difficult period The statement continued.
71-year-old man visits Ukraine on a short turnaround trip and then flies back to America. I'm smelling pulmonary. I'm selling deep
Deep
vein
vein
thrombosis,
thrombosis,
pulmonary. Yep,
DVT. Yep.
DVT.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, anything can kill you. But I was thinking, holy shit, maybe the Russians poisoned him too. Who knows?
Right? It goes on to
Right.
say emergency personnel responded to a call for cardiac arrest at Graham's Capitol Hill home on Saturday night, according to the police scanner audio obtained by NBC News.
Very interesting. Yeah, so he made it home from his thing and had his DVT. Not unlike the experience I had back when I was only 30 years old, or 40 years old. Long time ago. I flew too many international flights at once and then tried to go scuba diving, and that'll get you. Can't kill me, though, because assholes live forever, right? So let's see. More news in strikes, of course. It's a refinery a day to keep the orcs away, and the return trip this time has been to Serzan refinery, and which has really got to piss those folks off because just like Ilski yesterday, this refinery was struck back in uh, mid-May when the first when this round of refinery strikes, when we started playing Get 'em Down and Keep 'em Down in May of this year. This one was struck, I think, the 21st of May, and they would have just been getting this thing back online, and uh, Ukraine watches every day. They watch every day and they go, how close is Nizhny to coming back online? Boom, hit it again. How about that one down in Ilsky? Looks like they're starting up that one. Boom, hit it again. Well, this is the 11th strike, 11th on Serzan. It's 7 million tons. It sits right in that triangle between Tolyatti and Samara and the Volga River there, and would be a big supplier into the center. So into the, Nizhny Novgorod, Samara, all the cities on the Volga, it would be supporting, as well as Moscow for sure, the central ring for fuel. So it's a good get. Definitely a good fire on a process unit. I understand it's on AVT5, so it's about a third of the crude capacity will be knocked out if AVT5 goes offline. And to my knowledge, they might not. This might be the restarting of AVT5. Might mean this refinery literally just got back up processing and got knocked offline again. So it's a good day every day when I can get up. And there's a World Cup match on or two, and Russia lost another refinery or had another strike on one. Jennie?
Indeed, that is a good day. I like how they wait until they waste all the spare parts to get them back online before they hit them again.
I know it's coldly calculating and an absolute, insult insufficient, injury incoming.
Yeah, and as you can tell, I'm totally heartbroken. Oh, what a shame. Oh dear goodness. Yeah, no, I love it. They are really calculating. You can tell that they are just sitting there waiting, or like, no, not yet. Kind of like, Mel Gibson in that movie, and where he's like, hold, now, go. That's funny. Are there any more strikes like this? Oh, I really should laugh more like this, because that is hilarious.
Well, they did also strike near Berdyansk port, a number of the facilities there for the military cargo and protection of that area. But the big news, of course, is that the other commercial traffic, has shut down on the Don Azov Channel shipping route out of the center of Russia and through Azov and out through the Kerch Strait. So that was the important result of that. Let's see the other things. No, that's it for strikes. That's all you get as far as strikes, Jenny. I can't do anything more for you, but we can move on and talk about. Um, we can move on and talk about one other thing. From people are looking for good Russians, right? You're looking for good Russians, and I can move on and tell you something that's not necessarily these are good Russians, but I just want to show you something in context of what I was talking about before. in relation to Russia breaking up, Jennie?
Please do.
Okay, so I talked about this about 4 days ago, this clip, but Natalka brings it back to mind. So I watched it again just to make sure that I'd reported on if I missed something from my previous discussion. This is the Irkutsk local government authority that's meeting to decide, to deal with issues. And the issue they're dealing with, the time that I reported on, of course, is Irkutsk has its own refinery. It's got a 6.6 million ton per annum refinery, and there's no reason for them to have gasoline lines in Irkutsk. They have a big goddamn refinery. But he's talking in here. He releases without knowing it this CCTV of the local administration meeting. He lets slip that all of the diesel and gasoline supplies from their refinery have been forced to be shipped west. So they've got this massive problem coming up with their harvest, right? Irkutsk is very high latitude, so they got to be very careful about when they put stuff into the ground, planting, and they got to be very vigilant to make sure that they get stuff harvested as quick as possible, because they can't grow an incredible lot of food out there, and some of it is consumed locally. So it's important that so when I heard about it the first time, my I noted that the headline, of course, for that was that Russia's flexibility in their refining system is so down, it is so brittle, that now if they shift all the material that they can out of Irkutsk to cover the West, the refineries supply for the folks on the Volga, they then have to take that hardship, and they won't have enough for local supply for all of their farmers, where prices were just going through the roof. And a local large farming cooperative, if there was one, that might have tanks to store it in, they can't afford to buy a whole parcel of fuel, 20,000 liters and whatever. And small farmers couldn't afford to pay the price at the pump, and they don't have tanks to store it in. So they couldn't buy in bulk, and the bulk price was still too high. And they were talking about what to do about it. Well, I just want you should watch this video all the way through for the absolute boringness of it, because I can't for the life of me understand why these people in Irkutsk, these people aren't, no one would ever know them if this video, I'd have never heard of these people. This local community, the local administration. I don't know this guy's past. I don't know if I'm sure he was put in by Russia Today or somebody. So, he's not by definition a good Russian. But this committee sitting here isn't talking about bullshit. They're not talking about Nazis. They're not. They're talking about how to deal with the situations that are presented to them locally, because the Moscow is once again fucking them over. And you should watch through this whole thing to recognize that they're literally trying to work through the smart way of making tough choices about whether they abandon agriculture in total and maybe go to selling fuel themselves. The fuel they would normally put into agriculture. Hell, they could sell that fuel on the market over to the west, and probably raise more than the grain they were going to make, and then they can buy food in, so for whatever they need, plus what they wouldn't buy anyway. So I just it when I watched it again, it struck me that these weren't phenomenally incompetent people that were just going about trying to make their day-to-day lives function in an area that is so forgotten by Moscow. Why would it be problematic for Irkutsk to become a separate country? They'd no longer have to worry about Russia telling them or Moscow telling them they had to starve themselves of fuel in order to keep Moscow going, because I guess fuck you, right? You're out there in the middle of nowhere. I can't believe that these places in Russia, the people that live all across in Irkutsk and Ulan-Ude and Khabarovsk and way out Primorsky and all these places, I know that you have been Russian for so long out there that you don't probably even have a local culture or whatever. But I can't believe that those folks couldn't take a look at what's going on and say, you know what? We'd be far better off with some self-governance here and to get out from under the yoke of Moscow. And are we not willing and brave enough to do that at some point? You know, because the country's going to spiral into chaos, I suspect, for one of any number of reasons, right? The multiple means by which it could do that. But as and when it spirals into chaos, I implore all the Russians that I've met and all the Russians I never met to finally take the opportunity to make something of your life and get politically active. Not politically active like, you know, United Russia, Nazism going to go to. How about just get politically active that we're going to have good government locally and we're going to make sure that the resources that are produced locally go to the folks who helped derive them and lived in this area for a long time. Just some sort of home rule, some sort of self-government. I implore people to repoliticize themselves inside Russia because depoliticization, just don't worry about anything like that. You turn over all power to us, and we'll make sure your life always gets better economically, and the government will stay out of your life. The social contract you have signed is an absolute, complete, and total lie, and each and every one of you now knows it. Everyone in the country cannot ignore that the social contract with Putin from when he took office in 1998 is totally null and void, and you've got to do something about that now because times are very tough now, and they're not going to get any better until you start taking political control of your life. Take control of your life and make sure that whoever is elected at your local, oblast, and federal level is representing your interests. And if they're not, kill them or overthrow them or throw them out by a ballot or do whatever you decide is however you're going to govern yourself. But look, if you don't take control of your lives, you're going to live like serfs forever, and all you're going to do is wait until the next strong man takes over and starts to tell you you need to do everything for the center, which is now someplace else. Maybe it's in St. Petersburg this time, or maybe it's in Samara that the new leadership comes up from the criminal contest that's going to, the chaos that breaks down. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Require that self-government take place in your country, in your locale. I implore Russians to re-politicize yourself because the deal you made is fundamentally wrong, broken, couldn't work, and politics, whether you like it or not, is part of every individual's life. Unless you are literally going to go live off the grid in a tiny family group, you're going to have some politics because that's how human beings survive. We survive by living in multi-family groups, different family groups until they form villages and towns and cities. And the more people you get together, the more you can do collectively for all of you by each committing a little bit in taxes and returning things. And it doesn't have to be corrupt. And, you can have good government, but only if you are willing to engage in it and stay with it to make sure that it remains good government for you. I mean, the Americans right now are not engaged in politics enough that look at what's happened to them. You have to maintain everybody's got politics. I don't care if you think you hate it, you only want to look at it once every 4 years while you're standing in line to vote. Don't care. You have to commit a certain amount of your life to the politics of living together, or you need to go find, your own little patch of wilderness to live in and be 100% self-sufficient. And that's a road to nowhere, frankly. So I'm looking at all these things in Russia because these people are trying to sell me these big thoughts in the last day. And so I looked at this thing again to see if I'd missed something. And I was just caught by that. Think about government. Think about the bullshit people are trying to sell you about Russia, and think of it from first principles. These people are just human beings, not like you, different, obviously, because they think a little bit different, but they're human beings and they're capable of the exact same things that make your life good and worth living. Regardless of how bad you think your government is, I'm sure it's, if you're listening to me right now, that it's better than Russia's. And make your government better wherever you live. But there's no reason Russians can't live the same way as everybody, well, a good lot of the rest of the world does, given their resources and capabilities. But not until they have an epiphany.
So I have a question. This is in Irkutsk, and to be honest, I don't know, and I really don't care to learn where in Russia it is. Would would Moscow really notice if they, stop sending them fuel? Like
Oh, yeah.
you,
Oh, yeah, they'd notice.
could they do it incrementally so that you like send less and less and less? Because, you know, Sweden, I have discovered is actually quite a normal country now. And what we do, because we grow stuff too, and we have similar problems to Russia,
I know
like,
you're all farmers and merchants.
yes, exactly. Sometimes the product is digital. Everybody here uses Spotify. Just saying, it's a Swedish product.
But mostly it's farmers and merchants that
Yes,
have rejection issues.
yes, yeah, we still do. We have rejection issues. Um, no, no, but so like each region, we have like a lot of farmers, um, and we have massive amounts of forests. But so what we do is like each region, you grow as much as you can in the region, and then you supply the region first, and then you ship it on to some other region, because Stockholm has 1.5 million people, and none of those fuckers are farmers, just saying. So they need to be fed, but the region first take care of itself, then they ship the surplus. Like that would be so logical, and that is what I'm thinking Irkutsk should do. We're gonna take care of us first, and then we'll ship the rest to other regions, and fuck Moscow, pretty much. What seriously? What's Moscow gonna do? Are they gonna send Rosgaria?
And that's it, right? That is the mechanism by which I predicted that a mechanism by which Russia might break up. Think of a place like Bashkortostan, who's given 73 soldiers for every one that went in from Moscow or St. Petersburg. They've had commensurately a vast amount of people killed from and a significant portion of their society. Imagine if you could go to your local county, state, whatever, a full 1% of the population disappeared. If you get up to a full percentage of the population being removed, you literally will have virtually find no one who doesn't know people who've died, right, from it. And this is where COVID sort of brought this home too, to people that 1% is a huge number. So Bashkortostan, uh, give up about 1% of their population, but also have a whole lot of serving soldiers, and they all come home from a war that they've decided to quit because money ran out and there wasn't any ammunition or whatever anyway. So it started to be a joke, and they just en masse decided to come home. These soldiers are now home in Bashkortostan, and they've come back, and there's no jobs. Two or three of the state industries, for like the power plant and the coal plant, have shut down because they weren't paying each other their bills, and massive corruption and inefficiency. But they do have coal, and they still have a power plant sitting there. So these soldiers come home, and they're all disaffected, and there's no jobs. And some youthful Bashkurt young leader says, fuck this. We're gonna do it ourselves. We're gonna have some home rule, and he takes on the Putin appointed governor, in verbal debate. In public, and they try to have him arrested, and the mob like breaks him out, and then they sort of run off the local governor, and they start to try to do some sort of health. Is and they say we're no longer going to send oil or coal or whatever we were doing to Moscow. We're not going to send any money, and we're not going to send any of the material. We're going to do deals directly with China who's happy to do deals direct with us, because hell, they're here in our oblast doing business already quite a lot, because you've allowed them to come in over time. So we're just going to start doing our own deals. Is it, a situation like that could happen, right? It's conceivable. Is Putin going to be able to mobilize enough Rosguardia to put down that sort of thing in Bashkortostan, when they've got tens of thousands of guys who just came home from the war and access to arms? I mean, are you kidding me? This would be like trying to take over the state of Idaho when it's full of preppers, with with no serious military, with some cops from southeast sheriff's departments. It would be a recipe for absolute disaster if if they tried it, and it wouldn't be successful. So yeah, could a local rebellions could generate and help break Russia up, because once the repressive regime in Muscovy tries to send in the Rosguardia and they fail, and we've got another situation like before the Chechen War the first time, well, you're going to have a third Chechen War for one thing, and you're going to have one in Tatarstan, and you're going to have one in Ishkaria, and it's every place who has a case of the ass with Russia and has a local reason why they might exist as a separate country, it'll just be on like Donkey Kong at that point. Once one goes, the many will go. I mean, look at what happened in the Balkans, right? It's called balkanization for a reason. That when it all starts to fall apart, it falls apart pretty quickly, and people locally decide, you know what, we're going to have our own country here. They don't oftentimes have a culture in those areas, a long cultural withstanding, that you could form countries out of the natural boundaries that are there now. But maybe they could. I don't know. Everybody in Sakhalin is well, almost everybody is an import, right? Primorsky has tons and tons of different people, and you've got Koreans and Chinese and everybody living there. I don't know that they could forge a national identity, but I know they have the natural resources to be a country. But whether or not they got the will to do it and the capability, but all these places are also the places where all the soldiers came from. So if they all come home, they're going to be able to build quite an army if they've done so. And Russia is also planting the seeds of this rebellion too. You will remember that major industrial corporations are now allowed to open and arm their own security services, right? Wagner's and Redoubt and all that. Every major conglomerate enterprise, Gazprom can have their own, Rosneft can have their own, and these corporations, they've got significant local presence in some of these places that, maybe the people at I don't know which refinery is owned by. Uh, uh, I think it might be Irkutsk. I can't remember because we haven't blown it up yet, so I don't know which refinery. Angarsk is. Oh, it's Angarsk. So it's a local petroleum company. It's an independent. They could so easy decide. We're not going to produce fuel for anybody else. We're gonna sell it to Moscow or any other region that wants it, and we're going to trade with China and do things by ourselves. Oh, and by the way, we have enough guys to form our own local militia. Oh, and by the way, Angarsk was allowed to set up its own security service, so it's got arms. And I realized that Rosguardia could show up with heavy weapons because remember, right after the Prigozhin incident, they passed legislation that allowed Rosguardia, a sub of the FSB, to hold and use heavy weapons, tanks and stuff like that. So it's going to be a massive civil war if they have one. But I don't see the Russian central government being any more capable of quelling a civil war or multiple little ones when they break out than it has in conquering Ukraine. They're gutted at this point, and frankly, I don't know that many people are afraid of the Russian army anymore. Jenny?
See, that's what I'm thinking. Because I know that we have all lived on the hype of the Russian military, the entire Russian military, including the Air Force. And then Ukraine showed us that they're nothing to be scoffed at because obviously they are still kind of capable, but they're not as capable as we feared that they were. We forgot the fact that, you need to maintain nuclear weapons in order to be able to use them. And I don't know, the kleptocracy that has been ongoing since the Soviet Union fell apart and from actually since forever, because it didn't start with the Russian Federation, it started way before. It goes all the way back to the Tsars. They took whatever they wanted, and hopefully the rest could just survive and be serfs. Nothing has really changed. They just name them differently now and pretend that they're being elected. What, Putin has been in office since the 90s? Yeah, those were free and fair election, except for that short stint with Medvedev, which he controlled. So it was just Putin, but he used a mouthpiece. So, I'm actually looking forward to the the different regions that could be independent nations. I will take the temper tantrum and the meltdown when my grandkids are going to do geography. I'll take that. I will help my sons with those meltdowns and go like, this was necessary, and I'm gonna give them, a history lesson that probably won't be as detailed as I can give. It's they will so I will explain to them why this had to happen. And I'm hoping there's a region that when I looked at the map that was shared in the back channel yesterday, there was one piece that I'm hoping that either they become completely independent or they choose to join the Nordics and just have it be a part of, I guess, Norway and Finland, because Sweden would never connect with it. The Sami land up in the north, because those guys have been cut off from their relatives in the Nordics. In the Nordics, they have been able to wander freely across the border. Nobody gives a shit. They follow their reindeer herds, and we don't interfere. The governments don't interfere. They even have their own government within that is under the Swedish government, but they have like their own independent, semi autonomous branch. And they have similar ones in Finland and in Norway as they do in Sweden, and they get together. But the ones that are being left out are the Russian Sami population. And I'm hoping that we can have like a unification of them. These are the Swedish or the Nordic indigenous population that
The Swami lived there, but you're saying some Russian nationals moved in over time, and that they would be left out.
no, so the Sami, when the borders were drawn, they cut off the Russian branch of the Sami population.
Gotcha,
And
that branch. Yeah,
so most likely they have now it has been over like 100 years, so we're talking generations back, but they were cut off from their relatives in the Nordics, and they
and
became.
and maybe they decide to reunify, like East and West Germany.
I'm hoping that they will be like that they will have their land up there in the north, up by Murmansk, and that they will be a sovereign nation, or that they choose to be a part of the, like, either they will have, like, we'll have a sixth country in the Nordics called Samiland, and that they would be it, but that they can move freely within Sweden, Norway, and Finland as well. uh, just have to vet them first and make sure that we kick out all the FSB spooks that are there. But that this only goes for the Sami people, not for like.
I would think it would go for any indigenous population that can, is culturally, it shows some cultural separation, and wants to live as a governing nation across the top of, Russia, and wherever else, wouldn't you? I mean, I would not try to draw a map like the British did in the Middle East, and decide where people are grouped. I would let the groups sort of self-define, and let them decide how big the nation's going to be and small, but hopefully understanding that being a larger group of people together has a lot of advantages from efficiency standpoint that wouldn't. Anyway, we're talking about too much about Russia breaking up, and not enough about breaking it up, because I must say before we stop that update news flash. Not only is Lindsey Graham dead, but three additional vessels have been added to the tally. So we're now up to 93, with 17 of those being struck today. And don't you love a big board that is like live feed? I'm loving life right now with this USF board. I never paid attention to this on a daily basis. I only ever looked at it. Well, I used to look at it just by unit, and go Nemesis. But I used to look at it periodically to find specific things. But I never looked at it on a daily basis like I am since 40 Days of Hell started.
It is kind of delicious, isn't it? I love it too.
It's
Yeah.
the perfect antidote for glide bombing Sumi.
Isn't the weather always perfect for doing that?
Well, it's the perfect antidote. Yeah, it is always the perfect day to see a refinery blow up. But I mean, I would hate to go a day when we didn't see multiple strategically valuable targets hit in Russia on any day when even one Ukrainian civilian was injured or killed by Russians' terror strikes.
I agree.
I'd
Oh,
hate to see that day. And Mockers has joined us. Hello, Mockers.
Well, I was just about to say, do you want to brief me on the Surzan oil refinery before I jump in there?
Sure. Seven. Well, we'll swap out. I'll say good day to Jennie and Slava Ukraini, and drop out after or maybe I'll get hooked in between and say that it's 7 million tons a year. It struck on the 21st of May, so probably just getting back online again, like Ilski before it, and and um, and the Tardistan refinery before that. They're clearly striking these as soon as they get up and running again after repairs from the last strike. This is the 11th strike on Surzan, 23rd largest refinery and 7 million tons, which look to be offline because I think it's AVT 5, which is the one of the two big crude units that are at the refinery. Bye bye.
Well, thank you. That works. Bye bye to them. So yes, just to quickly go over that, they had temporarily halted production due to being damaged in previous strikes, and I assume that they were just bringing this thing back online, or at least in part bringing it back online, and Ukraine went, no, you don't. I love how they basically make them waste money on something and then slap them down again. That's so fun.
I agree.
Jennie, do you want an opportunity to say bye before you go?
Yeah, that's kind of why I jumped in.
Well, I don't see Firefella yet, so hang around.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna say goodbye so that then I can just sneak off when I see him coming. Thank you everyone for tuning in, even though I was really tired this morning. But I'm working on my coffee now. And good morning, mockers, and fuck Russia. Thank you.
Yeah, England won the football last night, so I have a feeling he probably got a little bit, lubricated. So you might want to phone him. I'll just say that. Now then, there's been a development with the Orhanish alumina situation. I mean, it's not like changed or anything in particular, but Kalin did finally release his documentary, and I understand why it took him a bit of time now, because obviously the situation kept changing, and he was going to complete his documentary, and then of course there was the Irish government took over the EU Parliament, but also there was the vote in the EU Parliament as well. So
And that's in the nest for you, by the way.
Thank you, darling. He extended it in order to be able to add that on, and I watched it, and you know what? He did a really good job getting the message across. I'm not going to bitch that he didn't give everybody their rightful. Oh yes, I am. Yeah, their rightful flowers. But you know what? He did a good job. He's done a really good job getting his message across. So, anybody who watches it will be unequivocal about the situation. They'll know exactly what the situation is. Some of the people he interviewed as well were really, really. I mean, I felt for the couple that he spoke to that had lived in the area, and lived their entire lives there. Family home, just absolutely unable to be used because of the local pollution. So yeah, he did do a fantastic job getting the message across.
Yeah, and don't hate him because he's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
But
I
these,
mean,
I mean, I get the same little bit of that sense, right? These Johnny come latelys, they follow in. Other people have been doing work for a long time, and they do stories like the farmer down in Kherson and other. But he's good. He presents well. He's very attractive, and the message is all important. So I really, it's that's why I put it in the nest, and I encourage everybody to look at it and share it like you did, because don't hate him because he's beautiful.
I'm just also. I don't think he's into me anyway. I'll just say that. Tanker watch. Watch. Yeah, hello, mate.
Speaking of
Yep.
Irishmen.
Very good morning to you all. Yes, that's why I decided to come on. Just to talk a little bit about the video. First of all, yeah. You did a really good job. He explained it really well. He presents it well. He is an effective communicator. I will say that. I will give him that, definitely. He's really, he just has that talent of being able to get a point across. Now, of course, it's going to be dragged up. It's going to be dragged up every single time, and the Irish media have done it. You might have noticed he spoke in the media how the media, or how an Irish reporter for RTE was kind of giving him a bit of a hard time. But of course, when he was very young, he was living in London. Obviously, as a young guy, he was probably trying to find himself as a person, and he did fall in with Tommy Robinson for a while. Now, he has rejected that. He has stated very clearly he regrets all that, and he understands now that that was propaganda, that was Russian propaganda, and I think that's what kind of drives him the way he is now. The way he kind of speaks up for Ukraine in a way. So, there is a bit of a history there, and unfortunately, every time he's mentioned in the Irish media, that gets dragged up. So don't be surprised if you see that again. But that aside, he was really good. Like you said, the couple there, Pat. I'm not sure of his wife's name, but Pat Gagan, he's been fighting that for years and years. And there was a little tidbit in there that actually I never even occurred to me. So I think we mentioned before, Mockers, the history of Ahnish pre-Rusal, how there was always the health issues, miscarriages, animals dying, various other health issues. I think we spoke about that before, yeah?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
So that went on during the 90s. That was always in the papers. That was always reported on. Maybe not as much, but it was reported on. And then, of course, there was another investigation, for people, in case they've forgotten, back in like the 2000s, where the now Prime Minister, Taoiseach Micheál Martin, he was the then Minister for Health, and he ordered an investigation. And there was samples taken from various different people and families' blood. I think hair might have been another one. Various samples anyway, and I think it was taken over an 18-month period. And there was no like clear-cut conclusion drawn from it. And one of the things they found was that they never tested for industrial pollution. They never tested the link between the health issues and the industrial pollution. And so when Pat and his family went back and asked for that, all of a sudden the samples went missing. And so, like I said, the kind of what the theme was, this was all reported freely in the press, right up until the point the Russians took over, and then it went completely silent. And you know that I kind of find it a bit silly now that I never clocked that. Maybe others did, but Pat made it kind of very clear that I was like, as soon as the Russians took over, that was it. All the media stopped. It was like a complete embargo, and we saw that as well. You probably saw that as well when he went to speak to the local newspaper, the Limerick Leader, which is based in Limerick City, close to not close, but you know, within the same county. And even they were very twitchy. Oh, I see Marcus is gone. Okay. So anyway.
Yeah, and she'll come
Yeah,
back happy
you
too.
So has anybody else seen the you've all seen the video, have you?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, and that's the thing, capturing that story in a 42-minute video that is produced as well as that. Good on him for getting that out there. We've been following it all along, of course, so you won't have learned anything new if you follow the August story as closely as some of us have, talking to mockers and everybody since we first came aware of this, with the tanker bunker bringing it to our attention, you know, on sometime months ago now. You won't learn all that much, but much like a Ken Burns video or the Vietnam documentary, stuff that you read in time and you think you know all of, it's good to have it captured in that 143 little minute video, especially so you can share it with people who don't know anything about it. Isn't that right, Tanker?
100%. I 100% agree, because the thing is, as you said, there's so many little tidbits that none of us are surprised. None of us, didn't catch any of us out. We all know it because we've been either following it or researching it or looking into it. So we all know about it. But it's such a easy thing to just hand to someone and say, or link to someone and say, have a look at this. Everything there you need to know. All the relevant bits is right there. There's very very little he missed now. I'm just trying to think, because as Mockers said, as soon as he started filming and started posting his little bits on like X and on the various, so his short clips interviewing the TDs and the councillors and all the local politicians, that blew up, and then things started changing very quickly. We started getting, the EU involved, then we got the vote, and then we got this and that, and it was probably a bit of a challenge for him anyway to try and make the video and then bring up the.
We had a whole load of EU MEPs already on board. I'll just say that.
Oh
more
yeah,
than
of
30
course.
by my memory.
I think it was more. Yeah, it was 30. 30 had signed a letter that Bart had originally penned back in March. There was 30 something, and then when we started our campaign, we started getting replies from various MEPs, and it was kind of, we got up to like kind of 60ish, 70. I think it was 77, 70 something was the last final number, but that was all like individual emails where various people were screenshotting and sending to us to say, oh, this person responded and they're supporting. But it was never, they never put their name essentially to Bart's letter. But yeah, like Marcus said, that ball was well and truly rolling when Kaelan got on, when Kaelan started posting. But, like I said, that was a big boost as well. So, as far as I'm concerned, it helped massively. It helped the cause. It got the message out. He did a very good job. There's another video, actually. I'm sure most of you guys are probably aware of it. It's linked on the website as well. Because there's a local, well, he's Irish anyway. I don't know if he's local, but there's an Irish filmmaker there who did his own video. Now, this was, I'll have to double check, but I'm 90% sure this was pre-Irish Times investigation. So he focused mainly on the environmental impact of Ahanish. So this was pre any of the links to to Russia and the arms industry and all that kind of thing. This was just solely looking at the environmental impact. Kev Collins is his name. The Ahanish incident is the title of the video. I would strongly encourage everyone to watch. If you've seen Kaelin's, go and watch that as well. It just gives an extra layer, an extra kind of story to, more context to the environmental impact. I know Kaelin did a good job of actually, pointing out the environmental impact, but it's just a little bit more kind of a background and context. But no, I was like that. I was really happy. Like I said, it kind of, you don't have to continually repeat yourself of different little points that happen down through the years, and it just kind of brings it all together. So yeah, well done, Kaelin.
And hopefully I've finished crashing now. But bloody app, honestly, is it you, Tanker? Because the last time I spoke to you, I crashed as well in the middle of it. I'm just saying, go to work.
Oops. All right, well, blame me. Okay, fine. Okay.
No, every time Tanker's at work, right, interesting things happen. So I'm just like, stay in work, mate. Sorry.
Well, I was off yesterday, but I did move a cup, so maybe that happened. Maybe that I did something yesterday. So
Perhaps.
Right.
Fella, good morning.
Oh, I am sorry. Good morning. We only went and beat
Time
Norway,
to
didn't
call
we?
this.
Eh?
Time to
I
call
know.
this, eh?
I know. So I woke up at 6 and I thought, oh, so we only went and beat Norway, and my best mate was 50 yesterday. So it was a double celebration well into the night. And I woke up at 6 this morning. I thought, oh, that's fine. I'll be all right. I'll just have 5 minutes. And then I woke up and it was 8 o'clock. And I went, oh, sugar. I do apologise, people, but we are here now. And where's Jennie? Where's Jennie when you need her? Because we beat the Norwegians. We're in the semis, and Ukraine's still winning. So it's all good. Bless your cotton socks.
And fake Sweden lost. We established that when Jennie was up earlier.
So did we please Jennie? That's the main thing.
Yes, she was pleased.
Well, she's popping up to answer your question now.
Then my work here is complete, people. Thank you.
Although she was pleased a little bit about that, but I pleased her far more.
Show off.
Well, I just was up on the news of tanker and refineries blowing up and absurdity, and she made me laugh, so I gave her a good laugh later.
No, that's a fair one.
Will, stop leaving those comments for me to say. Honestly, that last one, I give her a good laugh. Did you? Did you show her it? Yeah, right. Okay, sorry about that. Jennie, do you want to add something before we continue?
While I'm really happy that England won yesterday, I am also quite sad that Norway didn't win because, like I said, the only thing the thing that Norway usually wins at is winter stuff, and it's skiing. And it would have been fun if they could actually win at something else as well. Talking about skiing, the International Ski Federation, which is, I guess it's FIS in the world, like outside of Sweden, and that actually means fart in Swedish. Yes, I have the humor of a 12-year-old boy, but they just decided that no, Russia does not get to ski with us, so they're they're cut out from all the skiing competition. At least they have some backbone. It's fine. Back to the power this plant, but yeah, I'm kind of sad, a little bit sad. They deserve to win, also because Holland is just hilarious, and fuck Russia. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, Firefella, I had a funny feeling you might be a little bit late this morning because you were, mid-celebration. Now, I note people are sending me DMs and I can't look at them until after I finish this, otherwise my whole app will just fall apart again, so I'm sorry about that. But you just have to wait.
I do thank you, Mockers. No, safety message, people. Please do not send Mockers DMs, bless. because you'll crash the little love, and she'll have to go and reinstall the app because it's so fucking good.
For the
Morning,
third
people.
time this morning as well, so don't be doing that to me, because it really messes with my sense of humour.
No, get out of here. 3 times already. Jesus H. Christ.
No, twice for the moment, but I'm expecting a
All right.
third time, because it will go wonky again soon, because it seems to be getting more and more persistent, this fucking, you will be on the beta, you know what I mean? I don't want to be. I
Yeah.
don't want to be your lab rat.
Elon is such a worthwhile individual, isn't he? I mean, he's a waste of fucking oxygen.
Yes, indeed, and he's got bitch tits. Anyway, so now we've got the Curzon refinery out from under our belt. That was a particular boom. Just point out a couple of other explosions or things on fire, because there's always something, isn't there? Yes, we've done that one. There we go. St. Petersburg. There is a fire covering 600 square meters that broke out in the Kronstadt district. According to preliminary reports, it started in the port after the explosion of a gas cylinder. It destroyed dozens of storage sheds and has spread rapidly within the last 15 to 20 minutes. Well, that's when it was, put. So within this very short period of time, it just went all through these storage sheds. Now, it does look to be out, so I'm just going to repost that. But, oh, no, actually, it's probably not out looking at that. It does look to have been at least partially contained. But if you look at this area, it's absolutely stacked up with buildings that are all like just built one on top of another. And no bloody wonder it's, spread fast. And I'm sure that, this is the sort of place that when Firefella turns up and finds a fire here, he'd be like, yeah, this is going to be a fucking nightmare. So feel free to comment on that if you wish, Firefella. He's probably still gathering his brains together.
No, actually, I was watching the whole video, and if I turned out to that and one of my crew managers or watch managers said to me, "Yeah, boss, that's out," I'd say, "Mate, fucking have a word with yourself. Get the people back in there, because that is definitely not out. Just have a word, mate. That's not out."
Yeah, there's not a lot of urgency with them guys either, is there? They just appear to be yeah. There are a couple of firefighters there. They seem to be dismantling a piece of a roof, perhaps, to make some sort of break so that the fire doesn't just keep going. Or perhaps just to
Oh,
gain access.
oh, get you. It's called cutting back, and you cut back to expose everything. And what you're supposed to do is cut back right to good wood. So you have charred wood on top, and then you cut back to the good wood, so there's no burning. But yeah, I'd be saying, mate, keep putting water on that until I'm happy, and that'll be about 2 hours time, because that is definitely not out. Just have a word with yourself, fella. You're not right.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So I can see there are actually firefighters working there, but it is, St. Petersburg port, so you would expect that there would be some guys there, wouldn't you? Doesn't appear to be enough though. We've just got sort of 5 blokes all just wandering around with zero urgency whatsoever. Well, all these sheds are burning, so that's fun. Oh no, in the Kemerovo region, a fuel truck caught fire. Of all the things, I mean, these things are worth more than gold and diamonds at the moment, aren't they? However, the fuel truck is, judging by that picture, no longer going to be usable. That's a terrible shame. You know what? Russia's short of. Russia's short of fuel trucks. Yes. And it's also worth noting that this area in the port may have well been a private storage of gasoline. That caused that fire. That's not a surprise, is it? Oops.
What did we say? That's the second time, isn't it? So there was that flat in I don't know where they stored about 1,000 liters, and it's going to just keep happening because they can't help themselves. The Vatnik scum, can they? Poor little loves.
They cannot. Now, Firefella, do you know Lindsey Graham's dead? You figured that one out? Do you know he's dead?
Actually dead or
Yeah,
metaphorically dead?
drop dead.
That's, as in stop breathing. Oh dear, what a shame. Moving on.
Yeah, he got home from what's it
A
called,
night,
Kyiv. He
a
got home
night
from
out with
Ukraine.
a night out with the boys. Let's put it that way, people. I'm not, making any what's it, but yeah, is he really? Oh well.
Yeah, really. So he got home from Ukraine and just dropped dead. So possibly, something related to a lot of flights or something like that. But either way, very unfortunate. Although he did look really, really happy when he was holding that P1 Sun drone, didn't he? So I suppose, at least he was happy for a while.
But more
Yeah,
importantly,
BBT mockers.
you what?
Will said it earlier, but people are kind of suspecting because if it was a long flight, people get deep vein thrombosis after long flights. So that's kind of the speculation that might have led to a heart attack, potentially. We don't know, but that seems to be the leading theory.
thank you,
Yeah,
Sanka.
certainly. But
Oh
but
well,
anyway,
moving on.
I just
Fair
wanted
enough.
to make sure. I just wanted to make sure that Firefella knew the situation because now I'm going to just tell you about something that I think he was pushing. Russia oil sanctions bill has apparently won White House support and includes 500% tariffs to target China and India for supplying Russia with fuel. So if it's got White House support, then great. But I know what's going to happen. He's going to say at the last second before he signs it, oh, but actually, I want you to pass the SAVE Act first. So, don't expect this to actually be passed. But it is a bipartisan legislation designed to impose potentially economically crippling penalties on any country that continues to buy Russian oil. If signed into law, it would give the president a sweeping secondary tariff authority. Now, they have to call sanctions tariffs to Trump because otherwise he doesn't really understand, or at least he doesn't get the point of them. And tariffs themselves are fucking bullshit, but this is what he wants to do. So you've got to use the language that he understands because he's like a small child. So anyway, yeah, this would give him secondary authority, sanctions authority, basically, over third country trade relations. Yeah, I can see that. I'm finishing my sentence first. You know me. I'll just make people wait. So the agreement announced by Senators Lindsey Graham, Richard Blumenthal, Janine Shaheen, what a name, and Roger Wicker, via joint statement, brings the Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025 to the edge of the Senate floor vote for the first time after more than a year of stalling, failed timelines, and a Supreme Court ruling that rewrote the landscape around the tariff authority in the meantime. So it's not been publicly released. It's unclear what specifically it says in its final text, but it does appear that the White House is on board. So what drove the breakthrough on Friday was Lindsey flying to Kyiv to brief the Ukrainian president on the congressional effort. Now, I'd just like to point out that he's announced this bill will be passed like 38 times or something like that. It's fucking ridiculous, honestly. However, I wonder if he's made the ultimate sacrifice to make everybody get stuff done because, you know what, we're all mortal. He specifically cited three converging factors: Ukraine's recent battlefield gains, the softening of global oil prices, but that might change because, the Strait of Hormuz, it's closed again, and the economic disruption of cutting off Russian supplies, and Putin's continued strike on civilians because, eventually you would hope that they were held accountable for that shit. So he said he'd never been more optimistic than he was today that we have a formula to end the war. I don't know about that, mate, but certainly it would be nice if you got on board and did some economic shit. That'd be lovely. So they're proud to announce they actually have reached an agreement with the Trump administration. to move updated Russia sanctions legislation forward. So we shall see. It would be nice if they did this in his honour, wouldn't it? No, this is what I'm trying to push anyway. So it functions as a conditional economic warfare toolkit, main provisions drawn from the original version in 2025, including tariff secondary sanctions to you and me on at least 500%, because, you know, he needs a big number to impress him, on all goods imported into the United States from countries that purchase Russian oil, petroleum products, natural gas or uranium, applied not less than 15 days after the determination and renewed every 90 days. The President retains a one-time waiver authority of up to 180 days per country, or good for national security reasons. So, you know, they'll have to keep paying him every 90 days to keep them off the sanctions list, which he likes that idea very much. So this includes asset freezes and transaction prohibitions, specifically targeting senior Russian officials, military personnel, oligarchs. I wonder if that guy who wrote in the was it The Economist? I wonder if that oligarch is included, that little fucking twat. Sorry. Including the Central Bank of Russia, Sberbank and Gazprom Bank, and a bar on US institutions transacting with them. That would be nice, wouldn't it? If we could all just stop doing business with Russia, that would be lovely. There is also a prohibition on importing Russian uranium, with secondary sanctions on foreign companies supporting Russia's energy extraction, such as looking at you, India. And restrictions on purchases of Russian sovereign debt, because who wants that shit? So yeah, there's I mean, you know, if and when that were to happen, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? That would be awesome. But well, we'll have to see about that. Sorry, Mr. Businessman, who's requesting. I'm sorry, I don't trust you not to take us on a tangent. So I'm going to go to Karen, because that's tangent enough for me. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, good evening from Alaska. Let me tell you something. I give Prune credit for pointing this out, but on May 31st, Julia Davis noted that there were several pundits on Russian TV who wanted to liquidate Senator Lindsey Graham, but acknowledged that it would be challenging and damaging. Instead, they advocated killing any and all talking heads that insult Russia and can be considered Graham's tentacles. Now, on the same date, on the 31st, Julia Davis also noted that Margarita Simeonyan wanted to send a Russian assassination squad to take out Lindsey Graham. And yeah. So I don't know if they did or not, but that's creepy. Okay. Yeah, I give Prune the credit for having the incredible memory that she does, and she dug up that tweet.
Well. Prince Heather, go ahead.
Well, you know, all I was going to point out is, I don't know, in the long run, Lindsey Graham is a huge Trump ally and will kiss up and suck up to him at a moment's notice and change what you thought he thought for a long, long time. He is and has proven himself, though, to be a longtime supporter of Ukraine, going back to before the full-scale invasion. So I'm scared of myself for having mixed feelings about this, because he is a supporter of Ukraine, but he is I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. I don't know what else to say, but he has been a consistent friend of Ukraine for a long time. So I'm having a hard time with it because I'm having very mixed feelings.
I have a mental picture of the late Senator John McCain greeting Lindsey and saying, "What happened to you? because ever since John McCain died, Lindsay kind of went downhill and became somebody completely different.
You have a point.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to dissolve us into American politics. I was just going to
It
say
won't. It won't, because I'm about to go elsewhere.
Thank you. But I wanted to say that, there are a lot of awful things that Lindsey Graham has done, in my personal opinion, but he has been a supporter of Ukraine, going back before the full-scale invasion even.
Indeedy. Well, okay, so there's a couple of things that I mentioned while I was talking there, one of which was this article in The Economist. And if anybody deigned to, waste their life reading this, it's written by a Russian oligarch. And this guy, he's, let me just have a look. So this guy is a Putinist. He wants to preserve the Russian Empire and spread KGB propaganda. I'm trying to decide what his fucking name is. You know what? I don't care what his fucking name is. He's a fucking Russian shill. And basically, what does his article say? His article says what Putin wants him to say, which is, it's wrong to put pressure on Russia. You must change your approach to us, and you must be nicer, and you must silently acquiesce to all the crimes of the Kremlin and everything we want to achieve. What are you doing? You should be nicer to us. In this article, the Putin-aligned oligarch gives the impression, well, in fact, clearly states there isn't even a hint in Russia that they need to change their approach. Not with the higher-ups anyway. Or stop spending half their actual country's budget on war. They've no intention of releasing journalists, artists, scientists, or environmentalists from prison, or to stop killing people and destroying residential properties, hospitals, museums, and kindergartens in Ukraine. No. They don't even address that shit. They just say we're completely justified. Most importantly, to stop this war, he's basically said, you need to just, acquiesce entirely to us. The approach of democratic countries must be completely different. You must 180 and stop putting pressure on us and basically just tell Ukraine to capitulate. That's what he said. You know what this is? This is another sign of the desperation of Putin's Russia, that he's now sending people out on outreach programs. Please go out and tell the world that we're not terrible murdering fucking terrorists after all. No. And if you just give us what we want, we'll go away and we'll be peaceful for the 5 minutes until we decide someone else to attack. Anyway, most importantly, we need to understand that when they do shit like this, we're heading down the right path because they don't like it. We must keep up the pressure on Russia, because the cost of the war for Putin must be much higher than the cost for peace, and only then will peace have a chance. This guy is pretending in this article that they bear no responsibility for the war they started or anyone that's been killed in it. So just to be aware of that. And that is coming out in our press, a known, publication. Russian oligarchs should not be able to even have the freedom to write this shit, We should be ignoring the shit out of them or sanctioning the shit out of them. Pick your preference, Mr. Russian oligarch, and piss off. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that that's really ridiculous. And also, every time somebody tries to promote Russian propaganda like Ukraine must give territory for peace, let me just reiterate something that Darth Putin put out. There will be peace only if Russia gets parts of Moldova. Okay, a part of Georgia too, but no Ukrainian territory. Actually, just Crimea. And while we're at it, parts of Donetsk. In fact, we want all of Donetsk now. In fact, now just Crimea, all of Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia, but no more. Just those. Promise. Yeah, exactly. So if we could just all, treat that shit with the disdain it deserves. Thank you. That would be nice. Thank you. So, yeah, it's a very Western idea that Russians are going to take to the streets and express their disillusionment publicly. Russians do not do that. The only way Russians protest is by just opting out, generally. I mean, very, very few Russians might stand up to be counted and get themselves immediately arrested. What's the point in that? So they do this very passive, brave victim, private protest. It's ridiculous. And, it doesn't do anything. There will be protests, but they won't be seen. And that's why we need to stop pretending that we're going to see them. We need to understand that what will happen will be very quiet and all of a sudden things will change. But yeah, that we can't make that happen any other way than continuing to support Ukraine and Ukraine's dismantling of the Russian system. And if we think we can, we're deluding ourselves. This article, let me just go back to it for a second, is from a sanctioned Russian oligarch from the Kremlin's inner circle, Andrei Melnichenko. There we go. And he's basically saying Moscow will need to be part of the new world security architecture. To secure us against what? Because as far as I can tell, we all need to be secured against Moscow. So, he is also apparently personally one of the biggest beneficiaries of Russia's war against Ukraine. And he suddenly decided on his own to publish an article in a Western outlet. No, he did not. He was instructed to do so. And, he's made out in this article to just be a genuine free thinker who just wants change and respect for Russia because we simply don't understand them well enough. Don't mind me while I puke. Anyway, so yeah, anyone who believes that shit, you deserve a slap. In fact, do slap yourself in the face a couple of times before, stop believing that shit. Anyway, it is much more likely for the Russian regions, like Will was saying earlier, to break away and to basically go, you know what, fuck this shit, we're going to feed ourselves at least. So, yeah, so there's that. And it will all come down to selfishness, nothing else. They won't do it for magnanimous reasons. They won't do it because, we want them to. They will literally do it for self-survival. And that will be the only time they go against what the Kremlin wants, just to purely, ensure that they can eat. And you know what? That's fine. If they're arguing amongst themselves, they can't be attacking other people. And that seems to be, where we're going to go. So, we could all shut up about giving Russia a chance and giving Russia a ceasefire and giving Russia negotiations. No, fuck that shit. Give them a big old punch in the face. Let me just check. Yeah, right. Nobody's got the hand up. Right. Okie doke. So, I'm just having a quick check again at Surzan Oil Refinery because it's owned by Rosneft, this one. Produces over 8 million tonnes per year or 180,000 barrels per day, but not today, it doesn't. So several areas of the facility are currently burning, and it does look like it was hit quite a bit. So, I think we can safely say used to process X amount of processing. Now, Magyar has given another quick update of another 14 vessels targeted overnight, which makes 90 vessels in 1 week. Remember when Magyar said he had something that he was going to show us? I think this is what he meant. Every 112 minutes throughout the entire week from the 6th to the 12th of July, the birds of the Unmanned Systems Forces have fed either a tanker, a tugboat, a ferry, or a dry cargo vessel to the gods of the Sea of Azov. The tanker shredder, of the freedom-loving Ukrainian bird has not grown tired. The Crimean switch-off operation is also in full force. And it says here, on the night of the 12th of July, also felt the full burden of occupation, and we will report on this later with evidence. Let us continue to work, gentlemen. See our online scoreboard. And he links to the online scoreboard. We will stand and Moscow will fall. Now, he calls this Molochka in action. I think that's like basically we're destroying your shit in action. Don't ask us what this means. The commander likes a riddle. Here's your only clue. If you speak Ukrainian, you might be able to solve this word. So there you go. Molochka. And that's all. That's all. So, Ukraine's going to have one hell of a wreck diving tourist industry when this is over. But what we must point out again is that they're taking out the bridges of these ships. They're smacking the bridges of the ships so that the ships are basically useless. You see, if you put a hole in a tanker in the side of it, that can be easily repaired. But if you take out the bridge and all its possibility to, function, you know what that does to that ship? That makes it scrap. Yeah, nobody's replacing all that shit. So this is actually really effective because every one of those ships that has a burning bridge is no longer going to be transporting anything ever again. It's going straight to the scrapyard. That's lovely. Lovely. Now, don't you think that Magyar's birds are working alone? Because Ukrainian partisans Artesh are behind the lines. Now, it turns out that they have burned some electronic warfare towers in Russia's Bryansk Oblast. And I think they're doing this in order to allow Ukraine the ability to take out the Iskander ballistics launcher that's been moved to the Bryansk Oblast, because that is currently causing an awful lot of strife, as you might imagine. And so I just thought that was particularly interesting, that they're taking these out specifically in the Bryansk Oblast. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if you see the Iskander launchers in that area suddenly come under attack, because it looks as though Ukraine are coordinating with the locals. There we go. So I also have some whining from a Russian here, which I love a little bit of whining. We'll get some cheese to go with it. The Russians, I'm not sure who this is, but this guy seems to get it. An FPV drone for the Russians costs about $300. And if you consider that now they stupidly install compact base communication stations right to the LBS, right next to the LBS, and even the drone operator does not need to sit anywhere near the LBS, it is even worse. An operator could be sat on a beach in Vietnam, controlling the drone remotely. And for every Russian guy he kills, money drops into his account. This is the meat grinder as it is. Now, wouldn't that be nice if you could just sit at home and just, or sit on a beach and just blow up Russians? I don't think it quite works that way. Pretty sure it doesn't. But this is what the Russians are now believing, that, that they're literally being killed by people, just gamers all over the world. And, let them believe that. Let them, because, hopefully they'll understand that the world fucking hates you. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, that we're getting there, aren't we? Look at what's happening in Mali. Hello, fellow Tuaregs. Do you remember when Ukraine went over to Mali and gave the Tuaregs there some training and information, and just generally helped them out at the time? Do you remember that, fella?
Oh, I certainly do, Mockers. How's that working out for them? I think they're getting their asses kicked like everywhere else, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, it turns out that those guys, they went home and they took that to heart, and they did some training of each other, and they did that train the trainer thing where Ukraine shows people how to do stuff, and then they go and tell other people. and they got themselves organised. And now, every time Russia tries to do something over there, they turn up and really ruin their day. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, would you believe that that has caused a little bit of consternation in, well, I think this is Lavrov. Yeah, Lavrov. So Lavrov's come out and said Ukraine supports anti-government forces in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and said that the Ukrainians are now acting against the authorities of all the African countries in conflicts upon the African continent. Now, I didn't know that, but they blame Ukraine for everything, don't they? So Ukrainians are kicking Russia's ass in Ukraine, but that's not Ukraine. That's NATO or the EU or the West in general, right? Because it couldn't possibly be Ukraine. And when Africans start kicking Russia's ass, it's Ukrainians. It's got to be. It's got to be them. So I feel as though, you know, are you telling us that Ukraine is a global power? Is that what you're telling us, Lavrov? You know?
Yeah, actually, because it's not Ukrainians in DR Congo, it's the Chinese, and they've been in there for years. So he's having a pop at them, really, because they just will not have the Russians into DR Congo, and the Chinese run it all, actually, taken over from the Belgians years ago. I only know this because I used to live there, but there you go. Small world. Cry harder, Lavrov.
Indeed, indeed. And it is the Chinese who are going to start owning parts of Russia as well. In fact, it looks as though, you know, some Russians have already started to accept their Chinese overlords already. Yeah, the very fact that they're, you know, can we please come to China and fill up our car? That would be lovely. Thank you very much. I just think that's brilliant. However, not all relations are going well. Apparently, and this beggars my mind, it absolutely baffles me. North Korean street cleaners have refused to work in Russia, and they cite the reason as low wages, because the wages in North Korea are 2 to 3 times higher for the same work. Who would have known that North Korea would be a preferable place to be living because they
No,
pay better wages?
that can't be right, can it? Honestly.
Yeah, honestly, that's the report. Now, I also think that if they stay street cleaning in North Korea, it's actually another reason why it's preferable is you can't suddenly get swept up in, you know, the push to drive people to the front line. I feel that also might have a bit of an impact there. But yeah, the Orenburg mayor, Albert Umadilov, I'm just going to say that there's an opportunity for a joke there. He says workers from North Korea won't work for 55,000 rubles because the wages at home are 2 to 3 times higher. So Orenburg cannot attract migrant workers from North Korea because they're not able to provide them with attractive enough wages. And this was the preliminary results of an experiment to hire foreign labourers for housing and utilities. Now, can I just point out that I thought they didn't want no immigrants, dirty immigrants. How fucking dare they come to our country and do our jobs? You know? I thought that was the general consensus of opinion. But we really need you guys, actually, because, you know, we need people. Anyway. So, even Russia, yeah, I know they have street cleaners. I know that was like a shock in itself. But the economy really must be in the poo stain toilet because, wow. Now that is probably monthly wage as well. I'm just being told. So 55,000 rubles in Russia is actually considered a decent wage, but apparently even North Korea is scoffing at this. Wow, it's about $715 per month. So it's not you know it's not massive. But it's better than zero wages, isn't it? But no, apparently it's much better to stay in North Korea and stay there anyway.
Good
Wow.
choice, because you won't end up on the front line as manure. So, wins win.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, you know. I think that's part of it. Anyway, there is something which I found quite interesting, and I'll just tell you this before we do the numbers. So, Christo Grozev. Now, this guy is an investigative journalist for Der Spiegel, The Insider. You know, The Insider, they come up with the most interesting and really thoroughly researched investigative journalism. He also used to work for Bellingcat and... oh, Jesus Christ, I'm going to have to go and break up the children. Will you leave your sister alone? Yes, that's right, madam. Come here. Are you covered in bits from outside? Where have you been? So, he stated this. More and more unprecedented finger-pointing at Putin is now happening in Russia. Now, this is something which I have noticed, that more and more people are getting less and less afraid to actually say, Putin, you need to sort this out. Do you not know about this? Because you should know about this. You know, instead of if only Putin knew, it's more like, why don't you know? You know, that seems to be the way things are starting to tip. And it is noting that this is also coming from not just the war bloggers. A former propagandist, Ramelso, noted to members of the oligarchy like Melnichenko, remember that guy who wrote in The Economist, who was like, you know, oh, you need to give us some space and breathing room and be nice to us because we're Russians and we only bring love. Him. But to another editorial in an intelligence magazine, which actually ridiculed Putin's Valdai speech. At the moment, these just appear to be organic rumblings and uncoordinated outbursts of frustration. But there has only been mild or zero repression against the outspokenness of some of these higher individuals, shall we say, which is unheard of, and is indicative of the FSB actually starting to tolerate this criticism, which begs a few questions, doesn't it? Now, I remember Gherkin was tolerated as a dissenter for some time, and even from prison, he still dissents. He's used the last 15 months to network and propagate certain narratives directly addressing the Kremlin's stability, probably at the behest of somebody else. Not only the Putin himself, though, but the whole system of the state mafia. The very fact that he's not died in prison tells us something. That there is possibly some disagreements within the Siloviki system, and there may be a terrible accident in the future. I mean, you know, shocking accident. You see, at this point, because Putin didn't win his war, nobody's terribly happy. The war hawks are not winning, and they find that absolutely unacceptable. And the ones who have lost their shirts and their businesses, they don't really like that either. You know, the ones who are suddenly the wallets being emptied. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you and your family think you could own things? No, Putin needs that money. It's his. It always was. You know, those guys, they're not happy either. So their profits and fortunes are shrinking because Putin starts to eat into their money to keep his war going. And of course, regular Russians, we know what they're going through because they can't stop fucking moaning about the fact that they've got no fuel. You wait until it's water, then you'll fucking moan. So the tipping point of this is Ukraine kicking their ass. Ukraine need to make more very big, obvious, unignorable victories. This may indeed help. The minute the FSB tries to present a fake, reasonable and rational alternative for Putin, we'll know exactly what time it is. As of now, these outbursts suggest that people perhaps are struggling to get the message directly to Putin's ear, and they're using external means to do so. However, when they say nobody criticizes Putin and it's all this bad boyars, good czar, that appears to be breaking down a little bit. Now, Melnichenko himself didn't point the finger directly at Putin in The Economist. He doubled down on Russia is great and has to be great and wins and always will win and blah, blah, blah. And things will take longer than you would like them to. But the Russian elite probably haven't forgotten Brezhnev and his disastrous legacy. We shall see. We shall see. But this is like the Titanic to the iceberg. It is a matter of time. It's probably not going to happen tomorrow. But at some point, something will happen. We just have to make it untenable for them to remain in their current situation. And the only people who can do that are Ukrainians at this point. So let's do some numbers. And then I will bring you some more woe because, oh my God, woe. Whoa, where is it? There it is. So, sorry, I have to get past all that. Oh my God, Lindsey Graham's dead. I know. Who knew that would, yeah, anyway, be today's headline. So it is the 12th of July, all day, and I've managed to get into the right month finally. Look at me, 2 days in a row.
Yay. Top work.
Clever me, clever now. I finally caught you all up. So 1,320 liquidated personnel, which again is up there, isn't it? It is. We have 4 tanks and 6 armoured personnel vehicles, which is very regular these days. We have another 53 artillery systems. And I mean, anything between 50 and 100 is like a lot. We have 4 MLRS. Now, unfortunately, no air defence systems today, which is, a little bit sad, but I'm sure we'll get over it. And the Russians can't build that many in a single day, so don't panic too much about that. We have 428 vehicles and fuel tanks, however. That's a lot. It's a lot again, isn't it? It was nearly 400 yesterday, and today it's tipped over. I just feel as though, Russia isn't quite learning the lesson, are they? Stop sending these vehicles into Ukraine because you will lose them.
Keeping the
How many
pressure
more
on.
would you like to lose? Yeah, exactly.
Keeping the pressure on, Mockers. Top work. Tanker's got his hand up, by the way, if you can see that. I don't know if you can.
Well, you'll have to fucking wait because I haven't finished. You'll all have to
Ooh.
fucking wait. All right. Let me finish. Thank you. We have 5 special equipment. We have 2 cruise missiles because, Russia, shitty neighbour. We have 2,034 operational tactical UAVs and 15 ground robotic complex. I haven't done the Air Force report yet, but go ahead, my friend, Tanker Watcher.
Are you done with the numbers? I don't want to break up your flow because I've got a bit of an update on Auchinish. But finish your numbers and then I can come back.
Okay, I'll just do a quick Air Force report because every fucking day, Air Force report. So overnight there were 128 targets in total. 9 KH-5969 guided aircraft missiles and 4 KH-31 anti-radar missiles, as well as 115 drones. According to the data from as of 2.5 hours ago, air defences shot down and suppressed 7 of the KH-5969 guided aircraft missiles and 95 of the enemy drones. So that's 102 in total. Sorry, losing my voice as well while I'm at it. So 26 got passed anyway. So hits of the final 2 KH-5969 guided aircraft missiles and 19 strike UAVs were recorded at 12 locations, as well as the fall of down fragments at a further 12 locations. In addition, the anti-radar missiles, all 4 of them, did not reach their targets. So I guess those are pretty useless because Ukraine's I'm assuming Lima system counters them really well. So there's that. Now then, please tell me more about Orhanish.
Well, okay, so there's a report here this morning on RTE, which is Ireland's national broadcaster, and it's just going through all the kind of, because the government is going on recess this week, this Thursday, and it's just going through all the outstanding issues, and it has a bit on the Orhanish report. And it says, the report into Orhanish alumina is just days off completion. It is understood that it will not contain a smoking gun, which proves definitively that the alumina produced in West Limerick is being used in the Russian war against Ukraine. Instead, the known facts will be presented and the baton will be passed on to the European Commission. Many within the government believe the Commission will have the greater capacity to produce categoric evidence. If it does so, the coalition will not stand in their way, according to some senior figures. That would possibly put 2,000 jobs in the region in jeopardy, which would pose a major political headache. But there are indications that Ireland's charm offensive at the helm of the European Council could help cushion such a major economic shock. Don't explain what that means, but anyway, the meeting of the competition ministers at Dublin Castle is being viewed as highly successful. Blah, 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 and then that's it. So, basically, I said it from day one, they were just going to, it was never going to prove anything conclusive, and they were just going to pass the buck.
Yeah, absolutely, because, it can't be them that makes the decision. It's got to be the evil EU that imposes the decision upon them. However, they're still talking about shutting the plant down. Nobody has asked them to do that.
No.
And that is a narrative. That is a Russian narrative.
100%. And the other thing as well, as I said yesterday, and I have to point it out again today, where are they getting these employment numbers from? Because when this whole story broke, it was 450 permanent jobs and an extra couple of hundred within the supply chain. And all of a sudden, over the last month or two, it's magically jumped to 2,000. So where are they getting these numbers from?
It's called Russian bullshit. That's what that is.
You beat me to it. Well said.
I'm going to have to bring back have you seen my Russia Today meme? Have you seen that? Because you know the way Russia Today, it's RT. Their logo is RT, yeah?
Yeah.
You know the green box with black RT. Well, I just stuck the Irish E because it's got the little hyphen, or the fada as we call it. I just stuck the E from RTE on the end of it to make it look like that. Effectively, it just parrots Russian talking points, and it's basically just so. I'm gonna resurrect that old meme now. At this point, I'm just gonna start posting it on every comment section of RTE's news articles now, because it's just ridiculous. I'm a little bit upset now.
So now we have to have another day of fact-checking the bullshit. Because, yeah, you're absolutely right. Those employment figures are just pulled out of somebody's ass. And, again, they're talking about we have to shut the plant down. Who said that? Who asked for the plant to be shut down? We asked for them to stop sending their product to Russia and to sell it to, Europe instead. How's that losing those jobs? Huh?
And as we said, as Dan has pointed out time and time again, is probably blue in the face, and I'm going to have to say it again. Pre-war, pre-invasion, Orhanish was only sending less than 20% to Russia. Why can't we go back to that? Why is it that it has to over 50% or whatever it is? It was 80 at one point, and then the government downplayed it to 50%. Again, another number changed to favor them. They're saying, "Oh no, it won't work if we stop supplying Russia." Why not? Done it before.
Exactly. It's just more narrative weaving to try and place pressure on them to not do anything. And the problem is that it would seem that the Irish government are quite happy to go along with this narrative and, not actually counter it in any way. And we're going to have to redouble our efforts, of course, because, look, the closer we get to the finish line, the more there's going to be this sort of pushback because, Russia. So we just have to keep redoubling our efforts and reiterating our points and saying, stop fucking lying, you fucking lying liars, because, otherwise they're just going to keep lying. Yeah?
The what's it? Because I heard of the term, the fire hood. Oh no, the fire hose of falsehood. It's called, where you just keep throwing as much bullshit and lies at the problem in the hopes that the people trying to tell the truth and trying to get the facts out give up. But we
You
won't.
know who coined that phrase, the fire hose of falsehood?
Oh,
You know who
I
did
don't
that?
know. No.
Epstein and Steve Bannon got together and coined that phrase.
Oh dear Lord! Oh, I didn't know that. Oh well, they would know.
Exactly. And all these lovely people seem to all be tied together in Russian money. It's amazing, isn't it, how that works?
Oh yeah, but there is an Epstein link to Oleg Deripaska, because obviously he was good friends with Peter Mandelson, and Peter Mandelson was good friends with Oleg. So yeah, make of that what you will.
Oh yeah, there's always an English lord in there somewhere. Was it you that told me this, or was it somebody else that basically, whenever you find any of these dodgy dealings going on, there's a fucking British lord attached to them. And I think we need to round up all the British lords and all of them that have been doing bad things. We need to, chase them through town with pitchforks, because apparently it's the only way to get them to stop fucking, taking Russian money. Dirty bastards.
You need to reopen the Tower of London, repurpose the Tower of London to its original purpose, I think.
Yeah, that would be a great idea, wouldn't it? That absolutely would. We could do that.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm not surprised. I don't know why I'm being so being annoyed. I shouldn't be surprised that this is what's coming, because I said it for so long, and there was a little bit of hope that something might actually come of this, and then it's going to be a case of this is now well over 100 days, people. I can't get across how annoyed actually I am, because this was over 100 days. We were expected some great competent investigation. The EU even said, "Oh, don't worry, we trust the Irish to do this." And it was even, the question was even put to the government on, when this story really kicked off. It was like, well, what much more investigating can the Department of Trade do, compared to what the Irish Times did? It's like, what more can you add to that? It's like, what competencies do you have to actually go in and investigate this properly? And we all know there's none. We all know this is what it was going to be. It was just going to be a complete nothing burger. So, and I don't know what's going to... Sorry, go on.
We know why they were doing this investigation. It was all about delaying the inevitable. And even now they're trying to, look, we still can't possibly prove it. So, as we can't possibly prove it, we'll just have to go back to step one of this position and just say we can't possibly, put those jobs in jeopardy. And they keep doing this. They keep going around in this same circle. And this is what Russians do. This is exactly what they do. They take the argument, right? And as soon as they start losing the argument, they take the argument straight back to square one.
Yeah.
Of their original argument.
Yeah.
It's a bit like every time, someone tries to negotiate with them and they say, but we must have all of this Ukrainian land, So, yeah, they just keep reverting back to their original position and hoping that we'll not notice. So the answer is just keep going. Put your head down, keep going. We would love to be able to get this thing done, because we've got other projects that we would like to get our teeth into.
Oh, yeah, big time.
But this one's important, really, really important. And this will set a precedent for a lot of other countries who are still supplying Russia, very fucking shamefully, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is really important to get done. And who knew that when we started this, when we were like, should we be doing this? Because this seems pretty fucking awful. Who knew that we'd be literally taking on the Russian government and their propaganda machine and, you know, their military industrial complex? I didn't quite realise that it would, you know, get the attention of the people it has. Literally, they fired up a whole network of Russian influencers and bots and all of that to combat this situation. And every time you as much as mention it, they're like, the jobs, all the jobs are going to be lost, and, you know, the government will lose loads of money and electricity and blah, blah, blah. It's this fear-mongering that they do. Because, you know, they can't really justify what they're doing. So they're like, look over here at this problem instead. You know, that seems to be how it goes. I've got very cynical these days, but I can sort of see it coming a mile off. So I'm not surprised, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to wear you out. This is the whole point. They just carry on reverting back to the original position so that eventually you'll just go, oh, fuck's sake, this is just useless. We're just not getting anywhere. And you give up. And that's why you can't give up. That's why you need to keep going until you break them. So keep it up, because we're probably going to need to call upon the fellas again to, you know, have another wave of, shall we say, pushback on this. Polite, but persistent. That's how it works, eh, Tanker?
Oh yeah, no, big time. And as well as that, to give some bit of comfort out there. If we're distracting all these propagandists and all these bots, and they're putting all the energy into this unvarnished thing, well, then that means somebody else is getting a break in terms of, you know, the narrative they try and push against Ukraine, you know, Ukrainians being evil, you know, all that bullshit we've been hearing for the past 4 years. You know, we might be giving, you know, by distracting the propagandists briefly, it's giving somebody else a break that's having to be dealing with this bullshit for the last, you know, how many decades it's been going on. So at least it's giving somebody else a break if we've them distracted, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And I think actually it's really good timing that Kaylin's documentary has just dropped, because, we're going back to that nonsense again. Okay, watch this.
Yes.
You know, take a moment to see the truth, have the scales fall from your eyes, and then tell us why we should leave them alone, because we really shouldn't. It's fucking disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, but like, I just can't believe that the government actually went ahead and did, you know, actually have done that now. I've actually dragged this out to the recess of all things, just to say, oh, I don't know. Do you know, they've actually gone and done that.
It was entirely purposeful. And we kind of knew it, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, the cynics amongst us, the old farts amongst us, knew that this was what they were doing. I mean, I said the other day, didn't I, that isn't it handy now that they've got this recess and they won't have to do anything? And also, when they come back, they'll have so many other things they want to talk about, and they'll try their best not to talk about this. Well, we can't let that happen. Just because there's a gap doesn't mean that you can forget about the important things within that gap. And that is another tactic, by the way. You know, we won't talk about it for 2 weeks and then nobody will ask us about it again. That doesn't work either.
Yeah, and another point as well, you know, we started this however a couple of months ago, and the attraction and the traction and the attention and everything that's got, like, it's way more. Like, we've done so much in such a short space of time that can't be underestimated as well. We can't write that off as well. And the other point I want to make is the farmer that you see in Kaylin's report, Pat Gagan. He's been fighting this for decades. And, you know, he's been put down and silenced. When it was in Russia, the government covered it up. When the Russians took it over, they kind of more or less had this kind of de facto embargo put on reporting on it for years. And in a way, we can't really take the credit for this now, but you know, in a way, we did kind of lift that silence. That now actually, you can actually talk about it, and you can actually have a discussion about it, and we don't have to do what the Russians say, you know. So while they try and desperately control the narrative, the fact that we're even talking about it, and the fact the media are talking about it, is a bigger win.
Yeah, and the fact that we got the EU Parliament to acknowledge it's a problem, you know, come on.
Yes, definitely.
That was a massive win.
That is the thing. And of course, as well, the other thing you have to remember as well, the 21st sanctions package, it's not going in, it's not going to be done and dusted in one big complete package, because they're all cribbing and fighting and whinging over kind of technicalities. Like I said yesterday, Spanish, I think, or the Portuguese are complaining about fish, and the Greece are complaining about oil or something like that, or shipping services or some other nonsense. So with all that kind of broken up, who knows? Who knows? Maybe you know, we might be able to bring this to their attention while they're still fighting over that, and say, well, listen, you're going to have to deal with this now. But we'll see.
But we shall see. You're absolutely right. We shall see. But I think that just the very fact that they've sort of pushed back with this very same position that we started with tells me a lot. It tells me that they've no other arguments. And, you know, I am something if not stubborn. I'm a very stubborn woman, I can assure you. And so, you know, this isn't the end, and it isn't, you know, too close now. It isn't too far away now from the actual end. But all we need to do is just dig our teeth in a little bit harder and just say, no, you fucking don't. You don't get away with that shit.
Yeah.
That narrative is a load of nonsense, and we're just going to keep pushing hard on that. And we'll see what we can do to redouble our efforts to perhaps have another round of MEP emailing to point out what absolute nonsense these narratives are, because it's up to them guys to push back to their faces. You know, we can only do so much, but if you tell the right people the right information, they can then use that to take it forward. So, you know, remember, nobody can stop them. Every last one of us is a fucking nobody. So let's do it. Let's stop them.
Indeed. To quote Churchill, this isn't the beginning of the end. This may only be the end of the beginning. So we have to brace ourselves. But we can do it. We can do it.
Oh, get in, quoting Churchill. Top man.
See, this is what we have to do every so often. We have to give ourselves a little pep talk and say, okay, right. This same bullshit again. Now we need to just, you know, we need to make some better memes and continue our efforts. So head down and forge ahead, because that's the only direction that we're going, you know. You can't step back. You've got to keep going forward.
Marcus. Or put another way, you've just lost the battle. You haven't lost the war, more importantly. So just stick with that.
That's a good point, because I was just about to say, when we were pushing for the 21st sanctions package, or to have this included in the 21st, and then it was announced, oh no, it won't be making it. You know, the arse kind of fell out from underneath all of us for about, you know, half a day. We were just so down and so dejected. And then we picked ourselves back up, and look where we got to now. And that's where we are now. We're at that point now where the arse is about to fall out from beneath us again. But it's a case of, well, if we keep going, what can we achieve in a month's time or 2 months' time if we've already got this far?
Exactly. You've got to remember the battles that we've won already, Tanker, and that is the important thing. So I'm going to now get on with the rest of my show. I'm so sorry, babe, but
That's all right.
I've got things I need to add. Got things I need to talk about. Never ever fear that we won't get to our goal, because I can see it getting ever closer, and every time, you know, we make some headway, we get this same narrative pushback from the Russian sources, and it's because they've got nothing else. And we know for a fact that we can debunk what they're saying. So we just carry on. You've got to be more relentless than they are. And that's, here is my lesson for the day. If you ever need, somebody to give an inspirational talk to people going into battle, just let me know. I'm right here for it. So, let me tell you about Boris Ugulbusk airfield in the Voronezh region. Well, that airfield, it was on fire the other day, and it turns out that the fuel storage depot was burned down almost completely, the fuel storage depot, judging by satellite images. Now, this is something we've noticed happen in Belgorod as well, and fuel storage depot at another airfield, and I'm trying to remember where it is. It might be in Crimea. Almost as though, there's a concerted effort to take out the fuel storage that services the Russian fighter jets. Yes, because you can't launch missiles from the air if you don't have any fuel to get your fighter jets off the ground. And this is just another way that Ukraine is trying their best to protect themselves. Because remember, we could have closed the skies for them, but we didn't. So just keep that in mind. So every time we, Ukraine's really hitting Russia hard, what's going to happen? We could have helped, but we chose not to. So now you just have to, sit in your bed and suck it up. You made this bed, lay in it, and watch Ukraine smash the absolute shit out of Russia and get some popcorn because, Now, these strike capabilities are apparently what has turned the tide with the White House. Yes, we'll see about that. I mean, I'm still thoroughly cynical, but the thing is, this guy is like a gleeful child that if you show him things blowing up, he gets very impressed. And I think that's what happened is Zelensky just took a compilation of Magyar's videos and said, look at all this shit, this Russian shit that we've been blowing up. Look how impressive we are. And that sort of like made him happy, He clapped and smiled and giggled while that was all going ahead because he loves that sort of shit. He loves to see things blowing up because he's a fucking malignant narcissist. So, according to 2 US officials familiar with the matter, Trump has been talking more positively about Ukraine than ever because they impressed him. So I think that's what they did. They impressed him. So he talks a lot of shit, but he was impressed by the videos that Ukraine showed him. And you know what? Sometimes that matters the most. Now, also remember that Ukraine have basically said, remember that peace plan that you wanted to do for us, America? Sorry, we're not doing that anymore. So they've also turned around and said, you can't tell us what to do. So there's that too, which I think is also a little bit, Trump favours a strong man. I mean, it's obvious to me that he fancies men as well as women. Absolutely glaringly obvious. And I wish all people would just live their authentic lives and they'd be so much happier. Just repressing who you are it makes you a terrible person. I'll just tell you that. And he likes a strong man, doesn't he? He's impressed by a strong man. I mean, look at that Mandani bloke who he's absolutely fawning over, called him a fascist right to his face. And he was like, yeah, that's okay. Well, he fluttered his eyelashes at him because he refused to be a sycophant. And he doesn't respect anybody who begs and grovels to him. Now, Zelensky's come in the room and he said, look at us, we're fucking strong, by the way. Look at all the shit we're kicking, all over Russia. Look at all our missiles that everybody wants. Look at our drone technology that everybody wants. Look at my massive fucking balls. And I think he's finally found a way to impress the orange turd. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I remain ever hopeful. So Shall we go through some... Oh, remember I said earlier on what happens when you run out of water? Well, Northwest Crimea is going to find out first. The areas that are currently experiencing water shortages geographically coincide with the locations that were targeted in the attacks on power substations, just in case you needed to know. Because, you know, if you need water in Crimea, you've got to pump it from somewhere, because Crimea is not naturally full of water. In fact, remember, they used to get their water from the Kakhovka Dam, which Russia then blew up, which then actually cut themselves off from that supply of water that came through the canals. How many feet have they got to shoot themselves in at this point? Because they seem to be, they've shredded their fucking toes at this point. So there are temporary, we know what temporary means in Russia, don't we? Yeah. Water supply restrictions in Krasnogarsky, Vardisky even, district, Nizhnegorsky district, Evpatoria, although there is an organised water supply in that area. In other words, there'd be tanker trucks bringing water. Krasnoperekopsky, Krasnoperekopsk itself, Armyansk, Razdolnoy, Razdolonensky, and the city of Saki, all of those don't have a proper water supply. Now, I'm just pointing out that the tourism season is supposed to be in full swing as well. And more people, well, they either don't have fuel to go to Crimea to have their holiday, or they've just decided Crimea is just not as inviting as it used to be. And that would be because it is under siege. There's no fuel hardly available anywhere. And when there is fuel available, it's ridiculously expensive. And it might wreck your car because it's been tainted. Because people keep watering it down, or perhaps it's the really cheap, you know, what was it, Euro 5 or whatever it is, that basically don't put that in anything other than a very basic engine, otherwise it will just eat it. No power, because remember, we've seen those pictures, those overnight images where they're looking a bit like North Korea, where there's only a very small amount of power available, and that's in Simferopol and Sevastopol, and everywhere else is on candlelight. Yeah, no power. We're not going to get a lot of videos out from Crimea anymore, because when there's no power, nobody can charge their phones. Just point that out. But just because you don't get video doesn't mean it's not happening. Oh, and no basic foodstuffs in the shops, because, you know, you need fuel to transport the food to the shops. Also, no cash in the banks, because, you know, you need fuel to transport the cash to the banks. It's all very bleak, isn't it? It's all very bleak. Perhaps the Russians should just go home. Now, I saw a video with a lady yesterday where she was complaining about the whole situation, and she said, we need to take Crimea back. Now, what she's basically admitting there is that they are losing Crimea, or / lost Crimea. But she didn't say we need to take Crimea back in a way that, you know, the specific word she used when she said take it back was actually a word that they use for stealing. So she quite clearly knew that Crimea had been stolen in the first place, and they were looking to, you know, that they should steal it back by any means possible. But do you want somewhere that's like got no water and no fuel and no way of resupplying? Do you really want it? It's got to be made unattractive. And that's what Ukraine's doing right now. They're saying, oh, yeah, it's sunny and everything, but you can't resupply with anything. So you can't eat there, and you can't travel, and you can't find fresh water without spending all day doing so. You know? Is that really how you want to spend your holidays? And it is indeed working. It's putting them off. And it needs to continue. Even those Russians who go across the bridge and try and fill up their fuel in Kerch now are being bullied by the locals in the Kerch area, saying, no, we don't want you here. You're from Crimea. And the amount of, I'm all right, Jack, that's going on here, that as long as we look after ourselves, you will have to get to the back of the queue because you're not local. You ever been to those places where you walk in the pub and everybody's local and you walk in and everybody stops and looks at you and you think, shit, should I be here or am I about to be murdered? It's kind of like that. Everybody is suddenly going to start doing this very selfish, we need to sort ourselves out before you are allowed to share in what we have sort of situation. A little bit apocalyptic. And it will continue to get worse. It will. I mean, the only people I feel sorry for are the Crimean Tatar people who are still there and the Ukrainian people who've been trapped there all this time. Just trying to live their lives, I would imagine that quite a lot of them have got out because they didn't like, being under Russian occupation. But those who didn't have the opportunity to do so still stuck there. And the difference between those people and the Russians who inhabit the place or are, temporarily inhabiting the place, the difference is this, that those people who are of Ukrainian heritage, the Crimean Tatar and those who were there before 2014, those people will quietly just club together and try and help one another and form a sort of, community quietly and do what they can for one another. And the Russians will be like, if you have something, I'm taking it. That's kind of how they've always behaved. And so none of them will hardly club together to look after one another. I mean, maybe if it's family, that they'll sort out family first. But no, anybody who's not family, you can all fuck off. We don't owe you nothing. And that's kind of how the Russians have always been. And that really is the mother of their downfall, because they're not going to be able to work together. Now, here's some tales of woe. These are videos of whining women. And here's one who kind of gets it. She kind of gets it. I mean, she's still an imperialist bitch, but she kind of gets it. We have barely had time to process the latest news. Now we're dealing with a big fuel crisis on top of everything else. I'm assuming the everything else is things blowing up within Russia. So now, here is the fuel crisis. Let us build up a logic factual chain about what's happening. Let us look at this logically. This is a story about oil. So what do we expect next from this fuel crisis? You already know that 25% of our power plants have been taken out of service due to drone strikes, which has provided, it's the translation's a bit shit, but basically the Moscow oil refinery supplied most of the capital's fuel, 1/3 of it, and that is now shut down until at least 2027. Yeah, you're optimistic with that, love. How accurately do the Ukrainian drone strikes? Their precision is truly remarkable. So, our catalytic cracking columns are damaged. This woman seems to be quite well educated, by the way. I'll just say that. Education, it will be the downfall of all fascism. This is the kind of equipment that cannot simply be replaced anywhere in Russia. Will would like this lady. New items can only be ordered now from China because she's realised that, nobody in the West is going to provide them with any catalytic cracking units. And manufacturing there has a lead time of about 1.5 to 2 years because, of course, they already bought all the ones that were available. As a result, gasoline production has fallen to 85,000 tonnes per day, and consumption is more than this. It is around 110,000 tonnes per day, meaning we have a deficit. Look at her, she can do maths as well. And yeah, a 20% deficit, she says. Official fuel supply restrictions are now introduced in 29 regions. And in Crimea, there is no free gas sales at all. Indeed. Now, let us talk about oil. And recall the World Economic Forum in Davos, the fourth industrial revolution, and all of that. You know, there is a theory in the energy sector, which means abandoning cheap hydrocarbons as a category entirely. You know, green energy. The West, through green transitions, are consciously depriving our exporters from influencing them. Our levers of influence come with oil. She's saying basically, anyone who goes into green energy and diversifies their energy supply is basically trying their best to get away from us. Now let's look at what happens to Russia. Our exports, so to speak, are continuing, but yet inside the country there is a shortage and prices will only continue to rise. This, of course, is no secret. The government are preparing a complete ban on the exports of diesel. This is a radical measure that would have simply been unthinkable previously. In other words, this is an admission that we are unable to cope. And thirdly, the authorities are now discussing taking imports of gasoline from Belarus, India and Kazakhstan. So one of the world's largest exporters, us, is now being forced to buy fuel from abroad. She's got a point, hasn't she? This is absurd. Absolutely absurd. Where is all this leading? Prices will continue to rise by 20 to 25%. By winter, logistics costs. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I've just moved her along. By winter, logistics costs will be crazy, I think, she said. Will be very interesting. That's what she said. Very interesting. I knew she hadn't said that. So she's basically saying, we're going to be in so much trouble. Air travel. What the fuck? Who the fuck knows what will happen to air travel? But it looks like Russia has fallen into a trap. I don't know what will happen to the airlines. On one side, there is the war and the attacks on the refineries. And on the other, there is the global energy transitions that were planned in Davos, with basically people trying to get away from us. Exclusive Schwab's model of capitalism proposes a system in which states are gradually replaced by global corporations. Yes, we see you tech oligarchs. Most people will only receive a basic income as a result of automation. What was that thing that Musk was promising, that everybody would just receive a standard income? And I'm just saying, this woman has got quite a grasp on what might be going on, or at least what these people plan. Put it that way. A bag of sugar in concrete will stop it from setting. I don't know why I said that. It just slipped out there. Just so you know. A green laser pointer will fuck up a flock camera's camera. I don't know. These facts just keep falling out of my mouth. Sorry about that. Anyway, we know that robotization is advancing in leaps and bounds right now. Not in Russia, darling. Not in Russia. But she is basically saying they're all trying to put us out of a job. So what we're going to do? According to this scenario, we will have to do something else. We will end up with small businesses going bankrupt. All smaller players will be pushed out of the market. Accordingly, this on top of everything else. So that's her. She kind of gets it. She kind of gets it. She did share some absolute facts. She is a bit late with some of them. 20% inflation is something that she mentioned there, and wild berries have already implemented that. So I think, she's a little bit late with that. She still doesn't quite get why, does she? She's not really got to the crux of the matter, but she certainly said Ukrainian drones are very precise. and she was impressed by that. I mean, why? Why would Ukraine be doing this? She just didn't quite get to the actual reason, did she? But she's getting there. And to be fair, she didn't have Botox lips either, so I'm quite impressed with that one. Oh no, she might have Botox lips actually. Yeah, no, I'll take it back. Fish lips. One Russian woman in Georgia is shocked that the locals don't like her. And I can't imagine why, but here we go. I'm shocked by the realization of what is happening in Georgia. I've been staying here for a week already. I've been in Batumi walking around, and it feels like something just isn't right. Yesterday, I opened my reels and videos started coming up about a disturbing situation. Negative and hostile attitudes towards Russians. Well, they have basically made a grab to the Georgian government, and the Georgian people aren't very impressed by that. In fact, they're being repressed horrifically. And so anyway, this woman is baffled. She said, "This puzzle is coming together. It isn't just something I imagined after all. This is really happening. Yes, that's right. They fucking hate you. This is really happening." And suddenly it made sense where all these dissatisfied looks have been coming from. I'm thinking, oh my God, where does this expression of contempt and disgust during all my interactions with the people come from? It is clear why nobody says hello to me. Every day there is a negative attitude. Every time I've tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination. Maybe it was just the culture of the people. But no, they are being peculiar. Now it makes sense. Thousands of comments from Russians who are facing exactly the same treatment here. We are facing the same attitude. I simply got off my pink pony that I rode here on, thinking that Georgia was a welcoming country. Well, you know what? It was, prior to you trying to capture their government and repress the people. I mean, it's amazing how they don't put these things together, isn't it? The
Yes,
people...
because
Yeah, go on.
but they don't do politics, do they? Numbskuts.
No, of course. So the people at the reception didn't understand me. I found this very strange. I came back the next day and I heard them speaking Russian to each other, yet they pretended not to understand me. And the day before, nobody there apparently understood me at all. And I am there like an idiot, jumping through hoops for them, trying to explain something in broken English, hoping that they will understand. And they just looked at me. Funny. And now I understand that they did understand me perfectly well the whole time. They just wanted to be this way. There was an incident at the shopping mall. I had a melon, and I asked where I was supposed to weigh it. I said, "Excuse me, could you tell me where I can weigh this?" And the man just looked at me. He said nothing. He simply pointed me to another counter where there was an older woman standing there. And I said, "Where can I weigh this?" And she said, "He could have told you." I said, "Well, I asked him, and he brought me to you." Again, she was unpleasant to me, but I didn't really realize what was happening. I said, "Are you messing with me? Are you making me walk around the whole store to buy this melon?" Yesterday, I was sitting in a restaurant, and a man lit a cigarette. And behind me, there was a Russian family. You could tell. They had a small child. I said, "Excuse me, could you not smoke here? There is a child and a woman sitting nearby." And he just nodded and continued to smoke his cigarette. There was another group of men nearby, and they saw everything. A man from that group also took out a cigarette and lit it. I said, please do not smoke. I have just asked you not to." And so, all three of the other men also then lit cigarettes. Basically, I had to get up, take my food, and move to another part of the dining area. You can go around searching for warm, hospitable Georgia, and you may find it in small parts. But in most cases, it is gone. Out of 100% of my interactions, only 30% were with friendly people. Maybe you should fuck off home then. About 70% of the faces were very unhappy, very dissatisfied, people who didn't want to communicate and wouldn't even say hello to me. Good. They simply ignored me completely, made me feel like a fool who was being deliberately mocked. and I was trying to win them over by being friendly. And yet, now I know this is a game and I must play it. And it seems their service industry has forgotten the Russian language. Well, I have now forgotten how to tip. I suddenly forgot today. You don't want to communicate with me? Okay, fine. I will not tip you. Overall, this is very unpleasant. She just doesn't get it, does she? They don't want her there because they don't want any Russians there now, because Russians have been treating them like shit for how long? Yes. Anyway. Did she not notice them daily protests in the streets? Did she not think that that might have something to do with why her as a Russian is being treated like a piece of shit? That she is. What do you reckon, Firefella? Do you think they'll finally figure it out?
They're a bit thick-skinned, didn't they, the Russians, didn't they? But I think she's starting to get the message, and I'm not going to tip. Oh, sweetheart, we don't need your money. Just pay for what you have, and then Foxtrot Oscar out the front door, because we don't like you. And that's the message, isn't it? Yeah. Not like you haven't been trying to take over Georgia for years now. Just stop it.
I have a little story now. Well, a Russian general has apparently leaked what he considers to be a devastating trade-off, that the Kremlin is prioritizing taking Donbass over protecting its own occupied land. Putin is spending what Russia has left to buy ground in Ukraine, and Ukraine is making that very expensive. The fuel crisis is now so acute that Sber, Russia's largest state bank, has built a map tracking 100 million clients just so drivers could be helped to hunt for gas. Another bank found 6 Russian regions with almost zero publicly listed fuel left at all. To hit Putin's goal of seizing the Donbass by the end of this year, Russia must now recruit another 60,000 men every single month. But they're not doing. The general called this claim totally unrealistic. The Kremlin can no longer buy ground because they have completely run out of air cover to protect it. Refineries do not lie. Analysts now estimate that 20 to 40% of Russian refining capacity is offline, possibly more. Ukraine's long-range drones are punching deep, hitting the massive Omsk refinery up to 2,500 kilometers away, was indeed one heck of a statement. With land routes to Crimea blown, Russia has shifted fuel supply to the sea, and Magyar has seen to that problem. Even Russian drone developers are calling their own fleet useless. The petro-state is being run dry. In June, Russia had to import 141,000 tons of gasoline from Belarus, which is, well, last year they didn't import any gasoline specifically from Belarus. So that tells you where they are. Just to keep cars moving, Moscow has officially lowered its standard of fuel to the very obsolete and toxic Euro 2 and Euro 3 fuel, which is meaning that anybody with a car that's got a modern engine is now having to have that engine repaired because it pretty much died by eating pizzas of itself. And mechanics, I tell you what, mechanics and funeral parlours, they appear to be the only places currently making a lot of money. Or at least, no, sorry, I mean that they have a lot of trade. Whether they're able to make money out of it or not is a different matter. The war has now entered Russia's southern grain belt. Across Rostov and Krasnodar, filling stations are capping diesel purchases for combine harvesters at 100 litres maximum. Farms have stated that they have approximately 2 weeks of fuel left in their own storage, and their harvest cannot wait. When it is ready to be harvested in a couple of weeks' time, they won't have any fuel to do it. Moscow cannot cover their roof. Russian courts are fining factories for failing to draft their own workers into reserve militias to fight drones. Revenue! If you run a plant, the state officially now expects you to buy your own air defence and will fine you if you do not. The occupation is losing power. The recent strikes have knocked out electricity in 18 districts in Crimea, forcing networks into emergency roaming. In Sevastopol, stores are closing, ATMs are dead, and public buses are no longer running or are putting on a very small skeleton service. The FT estimates that fuel shortages have now touched 50 million Russians. We can do better than that. In Zabalsky Krai, police are managing 4-kilometre-long fuel lines. In Saratov, drivers have to use a secret password that they work for the government to receive any gasoline. Putin wanted to command history, but it looks as though his empire is too unwieldy. He's fighting a war where a small piece of the Donbass is his only priority and everything else is exposed and flapping in the wind. Every mile he moves forward leaves a sacrifice behind it. They think they can outlast Ukraine, but Ukraine knows better. It will be a shame when their fire trucks are out of fuel and they can no longer respond to refinery fires, won't it, Firefella?
Well, it makes no difference, because they're not responding to them now. Just watching them burn. So, what a shame.
There is that, you're absolutely right. Jennie, go ahead.
Remember, like a long time ago, when you told that you could like bring in your dildos as collateral for loans in the banks? Can you do the same now? That was like so funny. Uh, I'm wondering if the banks now take, jerry cans full of gasoline as collateral as well, because that would crack me up way too much.
I bet you they absolutely do. In fact, jerry cans themselves, even empty ones, are worth quite a lot of money these days. So, you'd probably be able to pawn them, yeah?
Oh, Russia's fucking itself so hard. It's hilarious. Back to you.
Absolutely. I just wish they didn't have to fuck up Ukraine in the meantime. But, unfortunately, a dying animal will flail around and probably hurt somebody. And here we are. So, it's that time, folks. And I worked last night and my legs are falling off and I need to have some breakfast because my stomach's like absolutely started growling. So, I love his meaning and all that. But also, Tanker, we'll have a word about redoubling our efforts. Perhaps the fact that Mr. Kuleba spoke about Ornish the other day, perhaps we can use that to, help to redouble our efforts. So we'll see what happens. So, Firefella, time to see us out, my friend. And I'm glad you had a good night last night.
I apologise for being late, people. I was celebrating. But so Tanker, Mockers, and everybody else in the room. You might lose a couple of skirmishes. We haven't lost the war. Don't ever take your foot off the Batnik's throat, because they're losing. They now know they're losing. They just need to get a little bit further down the road. And don't forget, support the fundraisers. The more the merrier, people. Find those fibres. Do yourself out of a coffee. It's worth it. Slava Ukraini. See you all tomorrow, Mockers.
Heroam Slava.
Slava Nazi.
Smert Vilaham.
Smidge Vedaham. All right, what do we have coming up? What we have coming up later today, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 a.m. in Ukraine, in Kyiv, will be the kvetching hour and book club with Adam and Robin. Then starting at 2 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Kyiv, we will have Firefella and Mockers again, as we do every night. And following them will be Ming and Will for a couple of hours. And they have not named their segment as far as I know, but that's what is coming up in the next 24 hours. So with that, I think that I'm going to go edit this podcast and you guys can find it on Spotify. And with that, we will see you tomorrow. And I will say, Squirrel Watchers.
Hippopotamus. Oh, hang on 1 second. Will is
Hippopotamus.
coming up.
All right.
Will wants us before we close, so give him a moment. What do you want, Will? What do you want, babe?
We have named it. It's just nobody ever uses it. It's the Ming and Will's Lena or Vera from Long Beach's Vatnik Appreciation Hour.
Yeah, I didn't know you need to have a card made, and I didn't know if that was a joke or if that was serious. I've read it, but I didn't know if it was a joke or if it was serious. Vera,
Am I ever serious? This is my serious face.
I know Vera from Long Beach's Vatnik Appreciation Hour. That's the segment name. So I guess with that, now that is settled, we will say Scorpipotamus. Get a card made, Will.
Yeah, because that just trips off the tongue. Will, well played, sir. Hippopotamus.
Yeah, it may need some editing. Yeah.